Welcome, everyone. Calling the meeting for November 7th to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks for everybody showing up tonight. First order of business, just let the record show that all directors are in attendance tonight, as well as Student Board Representative Ashley Kyle Tucker is absent and excused. Is there any motion to approve the agenda?
Make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
I second the motion.
Motion made, second. Any discussion, questions, anything removed? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Carries with a voice vote. And I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Vanderyacht.
Yeah, there is a lot of meaty good news in this list, and so if you haven't had a chance to look through it, I would encourage you to do so. I did pick out 3, and none of them are elementary focused, since the whole night will be so elementary focused. First one is the Parent Advisory Action Team at the middle school met for the first time on October 24. Any LMS parent or guardian is welcome to join these sessions. The PAAT collaborates with LMS staff in support of our building goals. The reason I picked this one is I don't know how many attended, but I do know it is one of the things that Mr. Riccobene and Mrs. Selko had started as we returned back from the pandemic. And what ends up happening is it just gives an opportunity for parents to give input. And the reason it's on here is that I had a parent follow up with me and state how pleased they were with the opportunity to be able to do that. We talked through a couple of things that were surfaced at the meeting, and so I think it's an overall just healthy way for leaders to stay connected with community members, especially at the middle school level when the students aren't necessarily real open with their parents all the time about how things are going. And then on the second page, a long-awaited new playground has been installed at Lynn Academy. And students and staff are able to, students are able to play together outside on a structure that is safe. This is a long time coming. This is probably the first bond item. We added to the second bond run. This is probably the first bond item major expenditure that we've made post the bond not passing. And so it was pleased to be able to complete that project. And then Linden High School's fall production is Alice and the Rabbits of Wonderland, and it opens this week, November 8th. And so the show times are 7 p.m. It's on the 8th and the 9th, and then the 10th at 3 p.m., then November 15th and 16th at 7 p.m., and a final matinee on November 17th at 3 p.m. Sports get a lot of attention in our community. In the media and by parents, and the reality of it is the reason sports are so powerful is the ability for people to work together toward a common outcome, and activities such as dramas and musicals just provide an exceptional opportunity for do that. And so year after year we have these connections for young people, and so I would encourage support of Alice and the Rabbits of Wonderland if it works in your schedules. And then finally, I want to thank, today I thanked our schools and our school leaders for the continued commitment and dedication to honoring the veterans. November 11th is Veterans Day, and so Linden schools have a rich tradition of having very meaningful assemblies for our students, and twofold. One is it honors veterans, but as a school it also provides opportunity to educate students and adults about the sacrifices that it takes to maintain and earn and maintain and protect our freedoms. And so I know a couple of them have gone already, and there may be some more tomorrow. But maybe you can ask the elementary teams as they're here if they've done theirs already. But I just want to acknowledge both veterans and our schools for the work they do there.
Actually, I really like driving by the middle school and seeing all
Oh,
those
yeah.
pictures out there.
And-
Moving
We
on,
al-
yep.
And we
sorry.
also had a donation of the young man, former graduate, who had served and died recently. And so donated, so his picture was there as well.
For the meeting minutes, you all received the meeting minutes for, October 3rd and October 12th. Any corrections or additions? And if not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve the meeting minutes from both October 3rd and October 12th.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, and I said aye too. Motion carried by a voice vote. Consent agenda. Any requests to remove items from consent agenda for further discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion. It includes AP payroll for 15th and 31st of October, personnel recommendations, and the resolution 1120 for food service and meal balances on page 16.
Did we have the historic information related to the meal balances? Thought we were going to include that.
I did send it out in the superintendent.
In the update, okay, that's right. Okay, sorry about that.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded. Any questions? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried by voice vote. Okay, look at us go. Information from the audience. We've got one. Come on up, Nick Saka.
I just wanted to say that I really appreciate the effort that you guys put in with getting another security guard over there at the high school. I mean, I personally feel like I was your muse, you know? I felt like I was there with you guys, and we were working together as a team. So I'm only going to take 16% credit, and we can divvy that up amongst all of us at 16%. But there's something to be said about school security, and I'm very, very thankful that you guys took that seriously. And I'm thankful that we have someone else over there. Because whenever you have 900 people on a piece of property, it's just too much for one person. And you can't rely on it being somebody else's secondary responsibility. We should always have someone dedicated to those positions and for it to be their primary task. So I'm very thankful for that. But I also wanted to bring up something that I'm not quite on board with, and that's us adopting the NCAA, rules as far as like boys competing in girls' sports and testosterone testing. It's pretty cut and dry. I mean, boys are boys, girls are girls, and I even hate saying that. But at the end of the day, we really need to draw the line somewhere, and my position has always been and will always be, if it's an individual sport, you have a third category. If it's a team sport, they play on the team that identifies with the sex that they were born. End of story. Because at the end of the day, we need to preserve women's sports. There was an article that was recently released that said over 800 women were denied medals worldwide because of this, because of what's going on. And none of our girls should be put in a position like that. None of our girls should be put in harm's way. And I just think it's unfair. And I think it's a step backwards for the women's movement and also for feminism. So with that being said, again, thank you very much for supporting and getting somebody over there, because I think it's going to make a difference. Eyes on the perimeter, secure your perimeter, secure your school. And yeah, I would say testosterone testing is a no-go. Who's going to pay for it? That's my question. Who's going to pay for it? Do we get to see the results because it's medical information? Those are the things. Do we estrogen test for guys? Think about it. So, thank you.
Thanks, Nick. All right, we'll turn it over to teaching and learning. Come on up. Is it Bernice, Bosbeck, Fisher, and Isom. Okay, come on up.
Okay, friends, if you are a staff member at any of our 3 elementaries, choose your table. I think we did sort of a 3, 3, and 3. So somebody gets to sit right here next to me.
You can move
Anybody want
that.
to choose that? Hi, Ollie. Hi, Ollie Priestman. Hi.
She's like, hey, I like this meeting.
This is actually yours, okay?
Good.
No, put the game on.
Okay, y'all, we'll go ahead and get started this evening. I try not to get emotional on nights like this. I really care about every single person sitting at these tables and how hard they're working in our elementary schools. And it's one of my favorite nights when they get to come and talk to you about their school improvement plans. And we're going to be going in actual alphabetical order tonight. And Bernice, Bosbeck Elementary starts with a B, so they're going to get to go first. So if somebody would be able to just advance one click since I'm here, thank you, Rex. Excellent. Y'all, we actually can sort of move things into a more streamlined fashion for you this evening, just so we can move a little bit more quickly. And I'm recognizing the fact that you all are beginning to recognize the first few slides in the school improvement plan. So we actually just put them in one time. I'm going to just speak to those things very quickly, and then Rex is going to start up with the actual school improvement plan for Bernice Bosbeck. So remember, y'all, we always want to make sure that we're grounding our work on school improvement plans in our district strategic plan. Next one, Rex, please. We do have 3 actual areas of focus overall in our strategic plan. And this year, again, we're focusing as a district on effective core instruction. And we added a little bit of an extra piece this year where we're specifically working towards improving outcomes for our students who are multilingual learners. So again, as you're looking at the strategic priorities and looking at those sort of strategies that we would use underneath those priorities, this would again be nested under effective core instruction. All of our buildings are writing one goal around improving outcomes for multilingual learners, and then their second goal is based on something their leadership team feels is really important that the building focus on for the year. All right, Rex, next one, please. Okay, so Rex will start out with goal 1 for Bernice Bosbeck Elementary, which will be aligned to the district focus on improving student outcomes for multilingual learners, and then we'll just move through as we go. I think, y'all, if it's okay, after each presentation, we can stop for questions, and then we'll move on to the next campus. Does that sound great?
Yep.
Okay.
And then also at the very end, with all of them having presented, there'll be a time for questions as well. So
Great.
make sure we do introductions before you
Yeah, perfect.
get started.
Okay, thanks, y'all.
Rex Frazier, principal.
Joelle Dodd, interventionist.
Melissa Mandalen, and I'm the multilingual coordinator. We met a couple weeks ago, so I'm representing BVE tonight, but I'm really a part of all of these amazing teams.
And the reason BVE is because up until a couple weeks ago, you served as a special education teacher.
Yes.
Campus. Okay. MJ, why don't you introduce too, and then we'll go back. So.
Okay. I'm Mandy Jesse, MJ, if you will, and I'm the principal at Fisher. And
I'm Holly Priestman, and I'm math intervention at Bosbeck and Fisher.
Tim Doring, principal of Isom Elementary.
And I'm Jen Bashad, I'm the dean at Isom.
Great. All right. Well, goal number 1 is focused on effective core instruction, and I guess I'll read this to you and then explain what it means. But BVE building leadership teams will define Tier 1 non-negotiables for writing instruction, and through the exploration and addition of SRSD, self-regulated strategy development, as a UDL, Universal Design for Learning strategy. In this exploratory year, Bosbeck leaders will identify the UDL strategies within SRSD and integrate into the CKLA curriculum to ensure access to foundational writing skills for all students. So if you remember last year, we went through the UDL strategies book. I think it was like 100 different strategies of UDL, and it was a really great overview. It was a great vernacular builder, and all of us speaking the same language, and we had teachers trying out different strategies, but we ended up in different places, and some teachers were going really far with it and doing really complex strategies, and some were doing some of the lighter ones, and we wanted to narrow our focus on within UDL and focus on our ML learners. And so we narrowed that into writing. There's it's not a curriculum, it's an approach and a strategy. SRSD is a self-regulated strategy development, and I'll let Melissa speak a little bit more to that and what it means and how it helps our ML and all of our students. But it's really focused on clear process for foundational writing. And so rather than look at 100 different strategies across all disciplines, we said we're going to look at just writing, just this curriculum that's built with UDL in mind and built for ML students and built for special education students. And we're going to pick pieces of that we're going to add on to our CKLA for next year. And so this year is just within that leadership team to explore that, to pilot some of it, to see what pieces of it that we like that need to add on, and then by the end of the year, that leadership team will present that to our staff and say this is what we want to do, these are the right moves, and that we would get that agreement hopefully. And next year we would say that is a non-negotiable now, that we're no longer exploring it, we found the right pieces, we're going to add those on, and now all of our kids are going to get that and benefit from it.
Okay. And so I think too, please speak up if you feel differently, but I feel like the decision to go writing was pretty organic in the building. It was pretty unanimous. We all felt like that was an area of needed improvement. It wasn't a focus area for a while. We've been focusing on other things, and we were seeing that in general. We felt a lot of our students could produce better writing. We also felt like it was an area where if we can improve our writing, we're simultaneously improving our listening, our speaking, our reading. And so we're kind of elevating all of our language skills at the same time. So that's kind of what brought us to looking at some different approaches. And we don't want to, it's not a curriculum, it really is just kind of it's a layering of UDL strategies basically alongside what we're already doing. And so this particular approach has just tons and tons of research to support it. It's been done like so many times in so many places, and it's gotten such great results in lots of different studies. And so it just made sense to start with something that has been proven to be successful. And so basically, I'm just going to quickly walk through what the different letters in this what is it called? Acronym, thank you. Acronym mean. So the first two S are self-regulated, and basically what the kids are doing is they're monitoring their own learning. They're thinking about what they're doing well and what they need to improve upon. And then as they're doing that, they're setting goals in particular areas of needed growth. And then they're monitoring those goals. And then as they're reaching those goals, they're able to experience success, and that builds motivation, which improves writing. And so the other piece of that is self-reinforcement, which is basically they're taught to speak positively to themselves. They're going to give themselves a little pep talk, right, about what are the strategies. I know the strategies. I can do this. Writing is hard for kids, and it takes a lot of perseverance. So this self-talk piece is really one of the most powerful UDL strategies that's part of this writing approach. And then moving to the S in strategy, basically a writing strategy is just techniques that help to support the writing process and to improve the writing. So some of the main techniques that are involved in SRSD would be like, for example, they memorize mnemonics for the different steps that they need to follow in the writing process. They use exemplars or like really good examples of writing so they can see what a finished product should look like. They're using graphic organizers that are aligned from kindergarten all the way to 5th grade, and they build. So they come to new grade, they're not learning something new, they're just adding on to what they already know. Sentence starters, they're doing a lot of peer reviewing and feedback cycles. And so just a lot of what we know is really good teaching practices embedded into this program. And then the last piece is the development, which is basically getting them to where they can be independently successful. And we know that kids are independently successful at different levels and at different times. And so thinking about especially our ML learners, some of our kids may need a little bit more support and more practice, and this allows the teacher, the time to put more energy toward the students that need more support, and let the students that are becoming independent and ready to move along to go ahead and move farther along and produce more complex writing pieces. So anyway, that's kind of just the general idea of what this strategy is. And then knowing that this year we're in the exploratory phase that you said, and we have some of the teachers on the ILT team, instructional leadership team, they did the training prior to this year, and then all the teachers are doing the training this year embedded into the time that we have in early releases. It would be the extra PD days and the late arrivals. So it's built into the time that we have for PD during the school year. But a lot of the teachers were eager to get going on something writing, and so embedded into the WIN program, we added what we call a GIST statement. And so basically you can see the progression on here from, this is like a first grade sample, I think that's second grade, and a fourth grade sample. So all the kids are including this as part of their response to what they read in WIN. And why it's so powerful, it's just a little nugget, but it's super powerful because, again, like SRSD, it includes they're having to listen, speak, read, and write in order to produce this GIST statement. And so what a GIST statement is really like a concise statement or a summary sentence about what they've read. And it sounds simple, but it's actually quite complicated, because in order for them to produce this GIST statement, they have to understand what they read, right? They'd have to know what the important vocabulary is. They have to distill the information into their own words and just the big ideas. And then they have to be able to speak it, and then they have to be able to write it in a quality sentence structure. So there's a lot of pieces to it. And then at different levels, of course, we can work on different types of sentences. And so we've seen already this being a powerful piece to be able to add to what we already were doing during our WIN block.
And if they can't do it, then that's where the oral piece comes in. So our littles, like our kinders and first right now, where we might have to do pictures, and they're not doing the actual writing. So that's the part that you can't see, but there is the speaking part too.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So that's a little bit about SRSD and then the GIST statement.
All right, our second focus area is on safe, supported learning environments for all students and our multi-tiered systems of support. And so that's knowing each one of our students, using data to see where they're at and identify the needs, and then build a system that supports all of those needs. And so within that strategic focus, we're going to use growth data to bolster core instruction and program interventions to increase the number of our ML learners experiencing average and high growth. We've shifted that a little bit. Our thinking in the growth, we're still using the SGP, which is the student growth percentile we've talked about for some years now. Previously, it was more of a binary approach of we had low growth and high growth. It's now kind of spread out across three categories of a low growth, an average growth, and a high growth. It's really helped identify kind of critical levels of need, whereas rather than considering a kid high growth, if they're just barely over the cusp, now we have that average growth domain that we kind of look to if those kids might need an additional push as well. So we've said by spring of this year, May 2025, 85% of our ML students will be within the average or high growth categories in both reading and math, as mentioned by the SGP. It's not very often that I've written a goal with such high percentages, which is really encouraging and really exciting. So we are seeing a lot of high growth for our ML students, and you can see 76% in math are already average and high growth, and 72% are reading and average and high growth. And I think that sometimes when you get numbers like that, it's like, okay, that's done, let's move on to the next thing. But there's still students there that are struggling, and so we really want to go after the next 10%ish or so of those students. And so really There's no low-hanging fruit left in that crowd. I mean, these are kids that are just, it's going to take something real and a real change and a shift in our thinking and our approach to make sure that we reach them. And so I'll let Joelle speak more to what exactly that looks like, but it is exciting work. It's a testament to the work that's already been created in our building, and it's exciting knowing that we have the system and the pieces to do it. Oh, well, there we are, and that's where we're going. That was my visual aid. That was my ML strategy. I missed it. So everyone see that?
Just gonna mark that one down.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
All right, so I get to talk about how we get there, and this is pretty exciting. So components of an effective and efficient instructional program include these things. And next to the check marks are the ones that we've been really working on, especially for the past 5 years since we've introduced WIN. And so we're looking at our instructional program, and we just want to make sure that all of our kids are getting what they need, especially our ML learners. And so the first thing we look at is our schedule. And we have refined our master schedule and our intervention schedule, so we are maximizing the school day. I mean, I think 2 of you got to come visit us, and we're moving, and it's pretty exciting to see the level that our kids and teachers are performing at. And one thing that we did with the schedule is we have uninterrupted time for core time, and that is just sacred time. And so then we also have our intervention time, and again, that is sacred time, but it's for all kids at their different needs, and this is really important to all of our learners, but especially our ML kiddos, because we know that they're not missing any of their grade level content, but then when they go to intervention group, they're getting exactly what they need. So really, really important that the grade level content isn't getting missed when they are when they're out of the classroom. And so that schedule has been refined, and we think we're close to nailing it. Data is ongoing. We're using multiple pieces of data, but last year we added the biweekly data to our teachers so that they were constantly had data in their hands on fluency. Huge piece to just be able to see how their own students are doing, and then because WIN is a collective group, they're getting to see how their WIN students are doing. And this year we're adding the ML, so we're going to highlight the ML students so that teachers now have them at the forefront, and they're going to be able to look at their data and say, hey, do I need to do something for these kiddos in my core group, or do I need to talk to their intervention teacher, or hey, they're rocking it, this is awesome. And so then we've continued to refine, and we have our WIN groups, and our groups have become very focused, very goal-centered differentiations happening depending on needs. So whether you're a high-cap kiddo, you're a SPED kiddo, you're an ML learner, or you're just an average learner, you're going to have a group that is going to meet your needs, and we're going to base those goals for those kids off of that. Again, another benefit for, I like to say all of our students, but especially our ML, is a lot of our groups are small. And so this gives our ML learners more chances to respond. So that's speaking, listening, reading, and writing. And so that's just going to help them continue to foster that language development that we want them to have and work on that comprehension. So we're just like checking away, and we're pretty excited. And then we've really focused on our resources and materials. So that one's been that's been a little bit long to figure out, to make sure that we are using the best materials in our WIN groups. And we feel it in math and reading. We have found really good evidence-based instruction that we can use. And these resources follow progression in reading and in math, so all the holes are getting filled, hopefully, when these kids go to these groups. So that brings us to professional development, and we know that through professional development, that's where we're going to continue to grow. We're never going to be at the end goal, so we're always going to be looking as teachers, what can we be doing better? And for our WIN, it's all hands on deck. So teachers and paras, everyone's teaching our kiddos, and we're all there making sure that the kids are getting what they need. And teachers meet regularly to align their resources, plan their lessons. They deepen their understanding in different strategies. So like the GIST statement, we gave them just the outline of the GIST statement, and then our teachers took it, and they were the ones that said, okay, we got to scaffold it here for first grade. We got to do this for fifth grade. And so when we get into WIN, our teachers are rocking it. We have skilled teachers that can get going, and just the WIN cycle happens. And we have paraeducators also teaching these kiddos. And so these, if you come, oh my goodness, our paraeducators are probably just the most dedicated, skilled, amazing people that just pour everything into these kids. And it's pretty, it's so fun to see, and I get to work closely with them. And they'll pick up as many strategies as they can, and they're trying everything, but they do lack the formal training of instructional methods. And so as we realize that they are such an essential part, so we can have groups of 3, we can have groups of 4, we don't have win groups of 15 unless you're at grade level, that they need the training. And so we have put an emphasis on PD or para training this year and last year. And so last year they started the book study, the UDL book study. So they got what the teachers got. We did it in small groups, and they were taking little things into their group. And then they also got a course done by Amy Miller, one of the interventionists at Fisher, who is amazing with behavior management. And that's definitely a big one that they like to have, just because some of our most challenging kids also can be naughty. And so this year we have put a focus on learning the resource. And so our late arrival mornings are dedicated to giving them the specific resources and when. We're teaching them the resource, we're explaining best practices, we're giving strategies for ML learners, and then always tying in the behavior management. And so one of the areas we're really excited about is we've introduced a coaching and modeling piece where after they get the PD, they can either request that we can come teach a lesson, or we can watch them teach a lesson and give feedback. So we're constantly looking at the lessons, providing feedback, answering questions, and by doing this, our paras are becoming even better teachers than they already are. And we really feel that this was the last kind of piece we really needed to refine, because so many people are teaching our students, and so we want to make sure we give them the tools to be able to do it, and then to be able to help our kiddos succeed. So that is just kind of our instructional program that really has been something that we've been working really, really hard at. And then what we did is adding that GIST statement has been huge, because we do like to have a through line. So all the way from kinder to 5th grade, everyone's doing it, and every WIN group is doing it. And so the expectation is there's going to be so many writings that we will turn in, except, of course, our kindies if it needs to be oral, or we have some lower groups in 1st grade that just can't do the writing yet. And this is going to keep our common focus, and it's going to emphasize comprehension. And then we'll have this data at our next data cycle, which we do 3 times a year, and we'll be able to future plan, and then also look at our ML students and be able to pull out their writings and see how they're doing too, and if we need to add any adjustments to that. So yes, we are very excited about our instructional program, and we look forward to seeing the growth and sharing the growth with you in springtime. Cool. So there you go.
Our mindset as a building is that if we can move one of our most difficult populations, if we can move that population, that we'll see a paradigm shift, and that all of these strategies and the work and the focus that we'll do and intentionality within our ML students, if we can see more growth with them, that all of our other students will also benefit. And so we've chosen that as our focus, but we're confident that all students will benefit. And yeah, thank you both. We have a camping theme this year. Every 2 years we rebrand, and so we're camping. That's why the outdoor stuff, it's not just to be cute, but it is cute.
I had a few questions. So early in the presentation, it was talked about that there were other things that were focused on. What were some of those other things that were focused on before you guys kind of implemented the system?
The broad UDL strategies?
Yeah.
It's pretty broad. I mean, if you feel free to jump. Some of the UDL strategies are, they can be as simple as, greet kids at the door, know kids by name. Most of the UDL strategies have to do with the design of the instruction before it actually reaches kids, and so it's kind of taking whatever that intervention was. Every teacher has a bag of tools that they'll grab, and you teach your lesson, and when kids don't get it, then you jump in with all those interventions and those tools you have, and UDL is saying, rather than wait to jump in and fix it after it goes wrong, why don't you just put that in the very beginning so that it doesn't go wrong. I mean, stuff still goes wrong, but all of those things that you could anticipate, they should be built in. And so most of them are around that. So like if you were going to provide, a visual on the wall, or to a specific kid, why not give it to all of the kids? Can you think of other specific ones from the book?
I mean, even like positive reinforcement, just noticing the positive things that kids are doing and mentioning that is supposed to prevent, the negative behavior. It's it can be real simple.
A lot of them are rooted in
Yeah.
really step-by-step process kind of back to the SRSD, rather than say, go ahead and write a paper. It's saying first, pick a topic, okay? And then a kid can check in, a teacher can check in and make sure that you're not losing them along the way. So lots of little checkpoints for a kid to check themselves and for a teacher to have a clear visual on, did I lose this kid, rather than see at the finish line and then.
And I can see some of that in even the gist statements. You said that that's kind of a marker that you're going to be using later on. So help me to understand, when do those gist statements get during win time? But is there a specific, like I saw one of them was probably holes if I was reading that grandpa stole a pig from a gypsy or something like that. So is that like at the end of a lesson or a segment? Like how does that, where do those come in?
So it all depends. So like this first one, usually that is, we use the resource UFly in as a foundation's resource, and so it has a phonics page to it. So they read it, they need to say the who, did what, the when, the where, and the why. That one can take 2 days just because they're little and it takes a while just to even get that information on there. And so for the littles, it's usually one phonics page that they read and then they write that. I believe that the gist statement on that one, our second grade is in the book Cam Jansen. And so most likely they're looking at time because we're trying to do at least 2 statements a week. So they're probably saying, hey, we're going to get through this chapter. Again, it depends on how fast kiddos read, and they might take 2 days to get their ideas down and then put it in a sentence. And then the other one, it was chapters 1 through 3. So they're putting it looks like a big, they got through 3 chapters of reading and then tried to find the most important part of that.
Great for 3 chapters. So.
Yes.
Yeah. Good. I just had one last question. So I know that we had met with in our Saturday meeting and talked about multilingual learning and some of the important things that come along with that. And one of the things that I remember was that speaking was the thing that, at least at the higher grade levels, that was really difficult for kids to excel in. And we talked about some of the reasons behind that. So I know you mentioned that the focus is on writing. I want to ask the question again, even though you already answered it. Why writing and not speaking?
Okay, so they are doing a lot of speaking in addition to writing. A lot of the prep to producing a written piece is the conversation they have to get there. They're doing a lot of oral rehearsing before they actually write. So the reason we chose writing was because, well, for one, we do feel like part of the results of this speaking scoring lower on the WIDA is because the kids feel self-conscious to actually speak into the microphone on the testing day. So we're still collecting data to determine if that is kind of a testing anomaly or if it's truly a deficit in day-to-day, learning. And so we are making speaking a huge emphasis in our win time in these smaller groups, like Joelle said, with fewer kids that have a lot more opportunities to respond. And then again, when we are writing, they are involved in not only taking what they learned about, because usually they're writing about something they read or something they learned, and having to kind of think about why it's important, so it's a comprehension piece, but they're also doing a lot of oral. They're providing oral feedback to a partner as they're going through each other's writing pieces. They're reading the sentence out loud to another person, and that person might be giving feedback. They're writing after they've said it to somebody to make sure it sounds right. Mm-hmm. So it's really integrated, and honestly, as much as we can integrate it, they're going to grow faster. So it's kind of doing the speaking and everything else.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Could you tell me, I'm curious to understand sort of the mechanics of how a child would assess their own progress in writing. Like what does that look like? Can you give me sort of the nuts on both of that?
Yeah, you bet. Well, it's hard unless you have a program like this one that walks them. It has stages, and the stages involve really learning the steps, like to memory, and then applying the steps with lots of practice and support. So they get to a point where they're doing a lot of, first they're gonna evaluate their own piece, and they might just even start with a sentence, like a chunk. It might be the topic sentence of a paragraph, for example, and they're gonna evaluate their own writing. Then they might next time do a peer evaluation, and then the teacher's obviously going to be providing feedback all along the way, but they're getting a lot of feedback from an adult as they're doing this to make sure that they're doing it accurately and successfully. But yeah, it's very directed at first, so they know what they're looking for and they know how to do it, and they're given a lot of feedback. So.
And then through that, so for instance, on the lower grades, they have like a rocket ship. And so in their rocket ship, do you have a topic sentence? Do you have a reason? And so then they're able to go back, and after they've learned those pieces, they can go and look at the writing and go, yes, I can underline the topic sentence. I see that. And so there are rubrics, but for each grade, it's going to be appropriate for them, so it's not overwhelming. So rocket ship for a kiddo to color that in and say, yep, I got that topic sentence. Or, oh, I don't have a reason because I can't find it in here, and I can't. They're very. They use a lot of colors, and so topic sentence. You have green, red, yellow. It's kind of like step up to writing back in the day, and so it's really being able to see the colors, and for the littles, and even up to our 5th grade. Some of that color helps too, or they need to color code their own, and so if they can't find it, then it's like, oh, okay, I'm missing that. So there's ways for them to go again. The first stage is really, it's so much explicit teaching, and that's one of the things that we're working with the paras and the teachers, and we've got to be explicit. There's nothing, we don't need to hide anything from kids. This is what we're looking for. Let's see if you have it, and now you get to go see if you have it, and if you don't, okay, let's figure out what we're missing. So that's kind of what this does too.
I was in a 4th grade classroom the other day, and the teacher's getting ready, prepping them to write an opinion paragraph, and the look on some of the kids' faces was like, I'm not a paragraph writer, that's not happening. And but you get to the topic, and like, oh, I could do a topic, and they just write the topic, and oh, I could come up with a reason. And by going through those little steps, all of a sudden they've written a paragraph, and that's part of this positive self-talk of like, oh, I did do a topic sentence, maybe I am a writer. Like, I'll go to the next step, and I'll walk them through it. It's a really specific recipe, like you said, for making a good product.
I don't have any questions, but it was like a well-oiled machine over there. Just the kids knowing exactly where to go when, and the utilization of space was pretty phenomenal. And I don't know, it was pretty sweet just to see them interacting. It's impressive.
Yeah,
and every space, every nook and cranny.
Yeah, I got a chance to visit VBE on two Fridays ago. So thanks, Rex, for showing me around, and I got to see it in action. So that's the nice thing, because I probably wouldn't have understood what schedule meant until I actually saw the schedule, right? And then was able to go out into the field and see what was happening. It was really impressive. So it's like a well-oiled machine, just like Director Hickman said, and it's amazing the level of activity and the effort that goes into employing these things. I was really impressed. I saw, and to your point, Joelle, I saw the passion with our paraeducators. I saw a new paraeducator, and I would have not been able to tell that she was new. I mean, she was just doing an amazing job. So yeah, hats off to staff.
Thanks for coming. Anytime any of you want to come, it's really encouraging for staff. I mean, they love it. I don't know how many positive comments. They just constantly say this is important work, and they know it's important work. And then when we have people come through that are watching and appreciate it and are saying this is important, it just is that much more encouraging. So yeah, it's good.
All right. Thank you. I'm not going to remember which button it's going to be though. First of all, I would like to share, Amy Miller had reached out and apologized for not being here. She was going to be here and a family need came up. So let me express her apology for not being able to be with us. She is a very important part of what we're going to talk about today too. So Holly and I are going to walk through it. you're going to hear us talk about the work we're doing, and it's going to sound a little bit like some of the things you just heard. It's because it's the same idea behind the work of meeting kids where they're at. We have different goals that we've set, but we both do win strategies and things of that sort. Our focus in our building team, you're going to hear Holly and I kind of walk through the work we're doing with our building leadership team around supporting multilingual learners, but that is impactful, like you heard from Vosbeck, that impact all learners, right? Or are positive impact for more than just our multilingual learners. You're also going to hear us talk a little bit about doing things simultaneously. So we are looking at things like beefing up our tier 1 strategies in our classrooms, which impacts how many kids require intervention. So as we go through. So our school improvement goal number 1, Fisher students grades 2 through 5 who do not meet the at or above benchmark for the fall 2024 STAR Reading Enterprise Assessment will, on average, grow more than 1 year of their grade equivalency score by the spring of 2025 STAR Reading Enterprise Assessment, thus increasing our percentage of 53% of 2nd through 5th graders meeting the benchmark level to 61% by spring of 2025. This will be accomplished by incorporating engagement strategies learned through our professional development and coaching for our students who are multilingual learners that also have that positive impact on students that are not making benchmark. So one of the things that we're doing and our building leadership team has really focused on is a lot of things come into play. They call education a craft for a reason. A lot of things come into play and we get a lot of big ideas around education. We have UDL and sheltered instructional strategies and teaching frameworks and all these big concepts that have something very much in common in them, and that's student engagement strategies. Those professional development practices that we're doing, we're working with a consultant to reinvigorate a practice that existed in our district prior to COVID, which is the peer observation model of how we do look-fors and those things that are great teaching with each other as peers. I have mentioned to my staff over the years I've been here, but even to my past staffs, that I would be 100% better at what I do in the classroom now that I've been an administrator, because I have the luxury of getting great ideas and having those beautiful conversations from seeing other educators in their craft. And we develop each other through that. And we'll share with you that we talk a lot about speaking and listening as part of this practice of growing our multilingual learners. It's not just speaking and listening, it's academic language that we help build through those pieces. Which button is it? Sorry. Yeah. That one? Okay, cool. So you want to know what data we use. We use the STAR Reading Enterprise. I just gave some snapshots here so that I could cut off some student names. This is not all of them, but what we did is we took an average of kiddos that didn't make those green bars, okay? And if they didn't make those areas, we want to see them grow by more than a year. We know that if they are working to increase their level of understanding, we can't just do 1 year each year if they're not at benchmark already. So we also know that we have a lot of students receiving intervention, and I'm going to have Holly talk a little bit here. This is just a snapshot of our reading intervention percentages of students who are going to WIN groups. So if you could talk a little bit about our WIN groups and how that impacts those students.
So Joelle kind of explained it, what we do at Fisher and Vosbeck look very similar. The schedule is a huge part of it, maximizing every minute. getting kids into small groups so they're getting exactly what they need. And I can't speak too much to what happens in reading because I'm doing math in two buildings and not paying attention to what's happening, although there's groups happening at the same time, reading groups and math groups, as you saw if you were in either of the buildings. But as you see, the percentage of kids needing intervention has gone down, which is good to see. And it's also really exciting to see that we have, at any given time, there's 8-ish paras who are, like Joelle said, instructing, and Amy and I are focusing this year a lot on coaching and training them as well. So I've done a little bit with Joelle there, and also at Fisher, where Amy and I will watch, observe, give feedback, or model lessons so they can observe us. And we meet regularly and provide training similar to what Joelle talked about. So the students are really receiving great instruction in that time. The minutes are not wasted. And we have 3 brand new paras, and they are just doing phenomenal. We have now a total of 3 Spanish-speaking paras, and one of them was an ML student herself, and she's brand new, and she's amazing.
Crushing it.
She is crushing it. She's really connecting with some of our ML students who have been hesitant to speak or participate, and she's getting them to engage in ways that I would have never thought of. And she's a brand new para, but she experienced that, and so she's able to pull some things out with them that have just been really neat to see. And we have a former Linden student as well who's a brand new para. But they're just doing a really great job, and they're asking great questions, and their instruction was good to start as these beginning paras, but they are just latching on to everything that they see and everything that, all the trainings and things that, lessons that they've gotten to observe, and their instruction is just really phenomenal. So, and that coupled with good curriculum tools, and then how we're identifying students so that we know exactly what it is that they need, and they're getting that, not wasting time. We've shuffled groups a little bit. I don't know how much that happens in reading at either school. I think it is, but I with math, I know at both schools we've had, we're moving kids, so they're not wasting time. If they've gotten something in one group and they don't need to be in there anymore, we're going to move them to another group, because we're not going to make them finish a book in one or a math unit in a group if they don't need it anymore. So we're just trying to move them along and have them do exactly what MJ said, which is grow more than a year within a year's time.
Yeah, Amy's constantly looking at their progress in UFly and saying, like, is this need met, and where's the new existing, if there's a deficit, is there a deficit skill that we can, if they need to move into another group. So
it's a lot of regular communication with the pairs, because these groups that they have are 3 to 6, 3 to 7, or even 2 to 7, and talking a lot about who's making progress, who's not. We're getting a regular progress monitoring from them, and making adjustments as needed. And when they're not making progress, going back and reteaching ourselves, pulling those students and doing some reteaching ourselves, and finding out if there's other holes that need to be filled. And
it's a strong focus on what data is telling us to do. Instead of, if you think about it, it's not on a whim, right? This is what we're seeing through our progress monitoring data, and what that particular child needs. So what you see here is what we want to see. We want to see a progression of students needing less and less intervention as they get older. And transparently, I want to see that go down even more, so that we can push resources into early intervention even more, so that we don't need 8 paras in 5th grade, because now we're only at the 20%, which is that goal, right? To get down there in those upper grades. It means they've had access to the resources as they've gone through. So you can see this is a great trajectory. We want to keep it going. 2 things come to that. 1, we have to be very intentional with our data around our intervention strategies, but also back to that conversation I said earlier about our professional development and beefing up our tier 1, is so that they're getting what they need in their classrooms through the student engagement strategies and learning from one another. There's huge talent in these buildings, you guys. I mean, huge talent. And so being able to find those look-fors in lessons, using our professional development time around identifying strategies that are going to support the students being engaged with their learning does two things. It doesn't just support their academic learning, top secret, it also improves behavior. So when a student's engaged in their learning, they're less likely to show maladaptive behaviors to have their needs met. So our building goal was to also match in math what we're doing in reading for the same reasons. We are wanting to beef up our strategies in Tier 1 and focus on our multi-tiered systems of support, which is our WIN group. And so again, you're hearing what we're talking about is similar to BVE. So our Fisher students grades 2 through 5 who did not meet at or above benchmark in the Fall STAR Math Enterprise Assessment will on average grow more than a year on their grade equivalency scores by the spring 2025 STAR Math Enterprise Assessment, thus increasing our percentage of 51% of 2nd through 5th graders meeting the grade level benchmark to 59% by spring 2025. And again, this is accomplished through the benefits from our professional development and the percentage of those Tier 2, 3 interventions not exceeding those multi-tiered expectations of only 20%, what you just saw on the previous slide. We want to keep that trajectory going down. 20% is not a spring goal. That's a goal, overarching goal across our systems of education. So we want to keep creeping towards that. We need to be realistic in that expectation. Like you heard from BVE, our folks are hustling. They are moving from group to group to group, and it's fast. And I'll be honest with you, I had a sub look at me the other day and go, man, this bag is heavy. They have all of their intervention materials in their bag at the start of the day because they are going from group to group to group to lunch to group to group to group.
We have a student teacher who subbed for a pair when there was a need to be filled, and she, by the end of the day, was like, I can't believe how hard these people work going from first grade math to 5th grade reading to 3rd grade math to, I mean, they're moving fast, but they do an amazing job of it.
I'm going to just interject real quick.
Yes.
Do you find that within those positions, is there a high turnover rate? I have no idea, just because of the nature of the work.
I guess I wouldn't know compared to what. So a high turnover rate.
Do they stay more than a year?
Teachers or, I'm sorry.
Do they stay more than a year?
Oh, yes. We have several of our paraeducators that they've been there much longer than I have. They are very skilled professionals. Some aren't in it for a super long amount of time, and I'll tell you why. They go on to get their teaching certificate often, and so, which is great. But they're doing the work, and so and in those roles to meet kids where they're at.
Yep.
I'll tell you, the ones that we have don't want to go anywhere.
No. Cool.
They love it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So like I said, we have 3 new. One was a transfer that moved to Bosbeck and filled, and 2 are new positions.
Cool.
But they all want to stay there. They love it.
Cool. Thank you.
I'd say we've seen a change in the last 5-6 years in the demographic of our paraeducators is through attrition, some retirement and different things. We're just seeing young people who maybe aren't pursuing that 4-year college but want to invest it back in their community and through education, and so they've been really dialed in saying, hey, I want to do this, and then we've been a system that's been a little bit better prepared for them than we were previously. And so I think they're having positive experience. I mean, they're being, whenever you're valuable, you really are proud of the work you're doing, and that's what you're seeing in these schools.
And some of these folks, they started working in our system because their children were in our school, and they've gone to middle school and high school and beyond, and they're still with us. So that is a testament to them wanting to stay in that longevity in that position. There's a lot of conversation at the state level around pathways to certification. But also embedded in those conversations are folks that don't want to get to be a certified teacher. They love the work they're doing as a paraeducator, and so they want to stay in those roles.
Okay.
So I just have another slide that looks like the first one, but it's math. Again, just a snapshot of how we took our averages. We had talked last year, you guys, about the green, blue, yellow, red. So we're focused on those kiddos that didn't make the green, the at or above benchmark, and wanting to see that progress on average of those. And again, that's not just our multilingual learners. We're wanting to work on strategies that support them specifically, but that are good for all. So really excited about that. Oh, my button's not working. Oh, but look at that crew on the left there. That's their the win team.
All I do is win, win, win. That's it.
Oh, that's good. I was gonna ask. Yeah,
They have
cool.
shirts. They even did a little hype video,
awesome.
if you will. It was awesome.
I might have shared the video. Lord.
But I just have some photos here that emphasize that it's both. So you'll see a classroom teacher working on Tier 1 strategies in her classroom on the right, another one, the second from the left, and story elements. That's a product of the work they're doing from Tier 1, and then our beautiful WIN crew.
And everybody's smiling. They do really love it.
They do.
I'm
Really
seeing
well.
math expressions is what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
My son came home with homework and he drew a square. I'm like, what is a square, dude? Like, this is.
Don't even try to help.
He's like, I'm like, you're in second grade. I don't.
You're like, what is this for? What do you mean a math mountain?
Because I always check his homework, and I'm like, this is wrong. He's like, no, it's not, Daddy. This is a square. I'm like, what does that mean? So, anyway, that's good.
It's funny. So thank you. I mean it when I say thank you for your support of our school system. They mentioned it before when you guys come to visit. It's very meaningful to know that you want to see the work in motion, and they are. I couldn't say enough about how hard these folks are hustling to meet the needs of our kids. They all really deserve it. So that's it for us.
Thank you.
Mrs. Rickabain is also here. If there's questions that you have for the official team.
I have two questions. Well, I have one question that applies to both goals. So, so it seems odd that the target percentage that you're after. So I'm curious how. Well, what I'm really curious about is how many students does it take to meet that to meet that at or above threshold to move you from 53% to 61%? Do you know?
Not offhand. What I know is it's a percentage of more than 7% growth on those average of below. But I don't know the specific number in front of me of students.
Okay.
That would be my big file at school.
Okay. Because it just seems odd that it would be 61% is the goal. I'm not criticizing the goal. It's just like most people will pick some round number. So I'm just curious what the logic behind that very specific goal is for both.
The logic is to increase more than 7% of the students. And so really, it wasn't a round number to start with, so it's not going to be a round number if we achieve it or exceed it.
Okay, so you're just adding 7 or adding 8 to the number, and that's your. Okay.
So that improvement, does it depend on, is it weighted? So if you had, say, tier 2s that rose this much and then, you don't understand what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
That might be why it's hard to calculate.
Yes, it
Okay.
is. It is because it's an average of kids who didn't make that, and so
Right.
some are going to show like a year and 4 months growth, if you will, and some might not make that year's growth,
Right.
just depending on what their story is, right? And so it's an average of all the kids who didn't make that together, pushing that group as a bubble,
Yeah.
if you will.
That makes sense. Thank
You're welcome.
MJ, you mentioned working with a consultant.
Yes, yes. So Shannon Sinclair is an expert in multilingual learner experiences. She has been with the district before, and we have had her come in for our PLD day already and worked on engagement strategies and done classroom observations. And now we've set up our first round of reinvigorating that peer observation model, if you will. It has a lot of names and places, but we call it peer observation model, and she goes through protocols around look-fors and things like that make it an experience where people go in and find those things, those key components that have a positive impact on student outcomes. And so, and then she'll be doing more professional development with us in the district throughout the rest of the year as well.
And is she like a UDL consultant or just multilanguage?
Sheltered instructional practices, but the focus of hers time with us is around engagement strategies, which also exists in UDL. Okay. And so in UDL, you'll see that green section, that first one on engagement strategies. So the look-fors of engagement strategies and sheltered instructional practices mirrors the same for for UDL. So UDL and it also shows up in the teacher's CEL 5D framework. And so really we're trying to take this, what looks like a lot of big ideas, and really like narrow it, if you will, to kind of be very intentional on those engagement strategies.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
A little background on Shannon Sinclair. She's been serving the district, I would probably say 15 years potentially. And so she worked, it's called SIOP, and it's instructional practices for multilingual learners. Runs by a company, Pearson. She leaves Pearson, and then she goes as an individual contractor. And so then it becomes ML best practices. And so then we work with her. She trains all of our elementary teachers and all of our elementary paraeducators in the early 2000s, or mid 2000 or 2010 maybe. Were you there then?
Yeah, that's after 2015.
Okay, so in 2015, so we're training the whole group on these strategies, and where she's evolved to is going to work with teams on this peer observation model. So they design the lesson together. They talk about what the key things are, and then 12 people go into a room and they observe a teacher doing it. And then they get to meet afterwards and talk about the practice. It's kind of based on the health profession, how you develop your skills within health, and education has borrowed that to be able to improve professional outcomes. And so she's gained a lot of credibility in our district, and so we utilized her.
And one of the things we've done is utilized our work with Cassie too from the ESD around UDL strategies, and just married the two things together. We've done like video classroom observations to do the look-fors. That feels very safe if it's not someone that you work side by side with, to start building back in that vulnerability, right, of being in your classroom with your peers in there. And she has a very strong guidelines around what this looks and sounds like, so that it impacts student learning and doesn't get people to feel nervous about what's all these people staring at me teaching, right? So.
And I know there was some talk about hiring someone from the ESD in regards to CKLA. Is that?
Cassie and Abby have been working with us around UDL. And that shows up in our CKLA. It also shows up in our math. So what I've been doing with Cassie around our professional development is those look for things and videos for our staff meetings that we use every minute. Our staff meetings, honestly, I try really hard to make sure if it's a housekeeping item, it goes out in email, and that our staff meeting times together is not the housekeeping type stuff. That's the time to learn from one another and collaborate. And so she's helped with those videos and things for staff meetings as we continue, because it's a good partnership that have the good look-fors for engagement strategies around UDL and ML.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's the one on the right.
The one on the right.
Okay.
I handed it to you the wrong way.
Okay, let me just try it.
Yeah, there you go.
Let me make sure I get it right. You, again, are going to hear a lot of the same things. It's actually really helpful to go last in this particular case because they're reminding me of things I probably wouldn't have said. We do have a lot of similarities within the elementary schools. The WIN model is something that we all utilize extensively. Last year, I talked a lot about utilizing that WIN model, and then our goal was around reading and reading improvement, and we used STAR as the metric for that. And this year, our leadership team is really working to define Tier 1 non-negotiables for instruction that are 100% accessible and 80% effective for our students. And we're using the lens of, surprise, engagement. And then that is going to play out in terms of our metric for that is going to be our ISOM multilingual students will improve their average score on the speaking and language development rubric from 11.2 to 15.0 by June. That particular rubric is one that we have come up with, and I'm just going to forward here because it's coming out of when we're looking at the WIDA. So the WIDA is an assessment of multilingual learners, and I think that's something that you learned about with your multilingual workshop that you worked on. And so currently our students are 2.6, but WIDA in speaking, excuse me, but WIDA is this once a year, right? So similar to SBA and other high stakes tests, it is a point in time, but it's really difficult for us to measure over time. And it's also difficult for us to measure whether the interventions that we're using are being effective. And so we've developed a rubric that is going to help us and support us in being able to know where they are in their speaking and where we might be able to move with them. And so one of our pieces that we've been able to work on with the leadership team was figuring out some of those engagement practices and then also really defining where those kids are at in speaking. And so every student at ISOM, every ML learner, it now is placed on the rubric. Each piece of the rubric then has descriptors in it, and those descriptors are being utilized for us to, as an entire system, so grade level teachers, intervention WIN, recess supervisors, specialists, all the way through even our lunch supervisors are being able to access this and say, who is this student and where are they at? And I'll give a practical example. We have, obviously, paraeducators. Again, shout out to the paraeducators.
Ours are the best.
Yeah.
Seriously.
We'd like to say that they're close, but they're not.
I know. Really, you cannot do it without the paraeducators. I cannot speak highly enough about them. They're amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
When you take a look at our systems, we have amazing staff all the way through. But I do think in our particular community, the level of paraeducator I would say is significantly probably better and maybe more invested than in other places. Of course, I've only ever worked here, but
I've worked lots of places.
That continues to be my opinion. It goes back to the story that I'm going to tell about that paraeducator who was out on the playground supporting another student who needed some individual support. And they were trying to, of course, then correct a student. It was a multilingual student. And they were trying to communicate with this student to be able to tell them and correct them on a behavior that they had. And that student rolled their eyes and then walked away. Well, as an adult, what's probably the thing you're going to do?
Put them on the wall.
Oh, no, you're not, right?
Sorry.
Maybe not there. Oh, no, you're not, right? What they lacked was an understanding that the student didn't understand them. They didn't know. And so they weren't trying to be disrespectful in any way, but they didn't have the language skills to be able to understand what the directions were or what would be the safe behavior on the playground. And so we're going to be utilizing this all the way through our system. And then for our students, really being able to say, we're pretty narrowed in on that speaking is going to be the thing. And speaking, when we're thinking in terms of OSPEC as well, so speaking is the prerequisite to writing. We're going to start there. But writing is really just speaking into your paper, right? And so if we're going to start with speaking, we're going to be able to really monitor and then pick individual segments of the rubric to be able to invest in. And so some of them are vocabulary usage, comprehension and expression. And we might be able to narrow in on specific areas that you could give a STEM to a student that is going to be coming down the hallway, and you might recognize them, because we're going to put pictures on them, and you might recognize them, and you might know what the STEM you could give them that would help them develop the next piece of language. That vocabulary could be something on the playground in terms of how we transit from one place to another. That's directional vocabulary. You might then have classroom vocabulary that would be content specific. And so being able to really narrow in on where we want them to be able to go and grow in terms of their speaking, and then that speaking and engagement piece then grows everything else. And so that's where we're looking at in terms of effective instructional practices. We also are going to be when our leadership team was focused on narrowing in those non-negotiables around engagement. Peer observations is also going to be something we're going to do. We're hoping to get Shannon in. We have done practices with Shannon before at ISOM, but it's been a long time. And so being able to use those, there's some videotape equipment that we are going to be able to utilize, and then just being able to allow our professionals to go in and view each other's practice. A lot of them have exceptional practices already, but we need to grow that as an entire system, that some of those individual pockets of excellence, we need to have that grow over time. And so peer observations is a great one for that. You want to add on to anything there?
Well, the rubric we are doing 3 times a year. I don't know if you were already going to get there.
I was going to get there.
Okay. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, it's on this one. That's just the last sentence on this one. So we're going to be able to do the rubric a minimum of 3 times a year, but we have some students that we might identify to do it more often, about monthly, especially if we have specific focus areas for them in their language.
What's really nice is everybody wanting to be on board with it. So it's awesome to see when Tim gave the example of the student out on the playground, our paras that are out on the playground, they will text right away. We have a text thread, and they text with so-and-so did this, and then, oh yeah, he's new, he doesn't really speak English. Let's have Hilda talk with him. So they want to know where kids fall on that. They always everybody wants to be able to talk with kids and have them speak, but be at their level and know where to push them next. So on that rubric, they could be at one area of emerging, but they could be at a different area, a little higher up. So it's nice to know where they are on each of them, because then you know where you want to move them. So that's the goal, is to move each student up one level on each of the categories.
Dr. Martinez, what are you going to ask?
I was going to ask you mentioned that there's more assessments needed potentially for some students. Can you give a specific example of maybe an area of focus that would make you guys need to do more assessments for?
We have some students that work on a much more focus, so our newcomers, right? And so we might want more data measures along the way, and they are working a little bit differently sometimes, and so they have some pull-out instruction that is really around language development, and so we would want to know a little bit more often for them about how they're growing in specific areas, and maybe we've targeted vocabulary for them, and so that would be one area we would
targeted vocabulary, like transitional and academic,
basic navigation of the building.
Okay.
Right? Making sure that they understand how to get to the nurse, how to get to the bathrooms, all of those things are, if we were to put ourselves in a new culture, in a new place, being able to get a clarity of understanding about those is really critical. And then that opens the next doorway to be able to start processing instruction around content.
Cool, thank you.
Last year we did a very similar thing, which was we've got content-specific pieces that we're working on, but we also want to wrap that around this culture of belonging and then multi-systems of support. And so that culture of belonging, last year we talked that we really wanted to make sure that students understood that they belonged, that ISOM was a place for them, right? And so if they start there, and we believe our data continues to tell us in our student surveys that 100% students, not 100%, that's a little bit too high,
It was like 97.
It's 97 point something, but 97 point something do feel like they belong. They feel like they can ask for support, they can ask for help, that their teachers believe in them, right? And so that's a pretty significant metric for us, because then it allows us to move to the next piece, because you can't grow from exceptional learning experiences unless you're there. And so last year we also had an attendance goal, and so we had made some pretty significant growth with attendance, but we still didn't quite get back to our pre-COVID numbers. And so here's the quick data piece. And so you saw that massive drop within COVID, and we did some readjustment, but we still need to get better. And the difference between missing, regularly attending and not regularly attending is contributing pretty significantly when we think about our win groups and the intervention. So even Fisher's with those 40%, right? And we're hoping to continually to get that to a smaller number. But if they're missing significant gaps in school, they're going to need to continue to have intervention because of what they miss. Mm-hmm. If they are attending regularly, we are going to be able to impact them in a more significant way, both in their Tier 1 instruction, which we want to improve, as well as their Tier 2 or Tier 3 instruction along the way. And so last year, I said we got to just over 90%. That was April. We dropped down to 89% by the end of the year. But we're also identifying that our ML learners have a lower rate of attendance on average. And so our focus is going to be working there to increase that attendance rate. Because if you kind of notice, I think it's the more rust color, though, from this, it's not as, okay. It's the second one down, over on the left side. Their attendance rate for our ML learners was pretty close to our average learner. And they have dropped off more through this COVID experience than the rest of our population. And of course, that's going to have an impact on their learning over time. And so that's going to be a focus for us.
And it doesn't have the last year's on there, but it goes back up quite a bit. So last year was a good growth for us with attendance. It has been one of our focus areas because we know if students aren't there or if they miss a day, every week or a day every other week, or they're tardy a lot, they are missing that core instruction every day. And when they miss their win group time, it is dramatic. I mean, it can really affect them. So we do not like our kids to be gone. We know that one of the biggest reasons why in data, why kids miss school is from not feeling like they belong, a welcoming environment. And that's one of the things we've focused on for several years now, but we greet kids at the door. We are all out there. We are outside. We are in the hallway. The teachers are at the doors. We are always greeting kids. We are always welcoming them. One of the things we want to make sure is that when kids do come in late or they've missed a couple days, we're happy you're here. We're so glad to see you. We're smiling at them. We know them by name. We call them by name. We ask about them. So we definitely have focused on that over the years, and that we do believe has helped, and it shows in our survey data because kids do like coming to our school. We have done some other things. We've changed our attendance letters to be a little bit more, welcoming, supportive.
Non-judgmental? Less judgmental.
Less judgmental. Human. And real, because some of it didn't really even apply to the things that we were doing. So we have changed some of those. We like that. Last year I created an Excel sheet, and every time I sent home the attendance letters, I inputted that, and now I can search by student and I can see if they have improved and they're getting less of the letters. We've been doing a lot more of phone calling. That's a positive, hey, I just want to see if we can support you better. Can I help you? What's happening in the mornings? I know you're getting here 10 minutes late each day. Phone calling. I've recently started doing math is kind of my favorite subject when I was teaching. So I do now percentages on students' attendance records, and I do them by hand on purpose. I want to show what their percentage is that they're missing, and tardy and what that is already for the current school year. So when I did it last week, for example, and there was 42 days of the school year, then I would do the percentage. And I emailed with that attached to families that have some, it seems like too many days gone already and too many tardy days, and with a kind email about, please notice attached and how could I help to support you better? Is there something going on? Those kinds of emails that I think are going to help over time. We already see some that are I'm really sorry, we're going to get up a little bit earlier. It's hard at elementary because the kids, if people are coming late, it's not really the kids. I mean, yes. Occasionally it is. They could be throwing fits at home and, hard to get out the door. I get it. But a lot of times it's just, the parents' busy schedules, busy lives, many kids trying to get them all ready and out the door. And so trying to see how we can help them. I think sometimes they just don't really realize the importance. It's not that they don't want to get their kids there on time, but sometimes I think they just don't realize why it's important. So when we explain it, it might not seem hard that first 5 or 10 minutes, but that's the time where the students put their backpack down, they check in, their teachers are always there and they're saying hello to their students. That's the time to kind of connect and check in, and if they're coming in late and they have to do all those things when the lessons already started, it's very difficult and can be anxiety producing for students. So talking about some of those things has helped. Sometimes we talk to students about and try to find out the reasons, because sometimes, just last week, it was, well, we wait for so-and-so to walk to our house and then we drive him to school, and that's why the two of us are late, and it's really that he gets there late. So then talking to that student, oh, you're walking from home, and he's old enough to walk to the neighbor's house. How could you leave about 10 minutes sooner? So just some individual talks have helped. We have meetings with our families. We do that at conference time. We do that when we have chronic absenteeism. Last year sent home the colored state papers showing the data on absenteeism, chronic absenteeism, and how that can affect you by like grade 3 and reading and all of that. And then this year we'd like to start the colored zone letters that the high school and the middle school have been doing. Kelly's going to help me. That show, they just go out via Parent Square email that show the if your child is in red or is in green, and it's just a quick color code. So if they don't really read the letters that come, or if they're just too, they're too busy to see all these emails. I know that, I'm a parent of kids in the district. It's difficult. They can see a color. Yes, you're on track for your attendance and your getting to school on time. So
I think it's also supportive in that it affirms those who are in the green and who are doing a behavior that we hope they would, which is prioritizing and being on time. And then it also is kind of like that little warning, right? And then like, we might want to do something different here. And so taking multiple pathways to support students and families and making sure that they're staying engaged and being present so that they can experience the quality instruction.
We're very thankful and lucky that we also have a paraeducator who speaks Spanish and is our family advocate, and she takes text messages and calls, like starting at 6 a.m. and keeps track of those families and helps them. And I mean, we have some of our ML kids, one we were talking about last week or a couple weeks ago when we said, okay, he's not getting here, mom has to go to work. Sister can't get him on the bus, he won't go, what are we going to do? We were like, bring him here at 7:45. He can sit in the office until school starts. We can give him things to do. Bring him on your way to work. We're trying about anything we can to get some of the kids there.
And it was successful.
And it was successful. He didn't like doing that a couple days. He finally decided he was going to get on the bus.
Yeah? Are you going to introduce this video?
Oh, yes.
Hit the button so it loads.
Okay.
There you go.
It'll give me time.
Yeah, okay. There you go.
Just wanted to play a video that we put together for our staff. I think sometimes we consider the work we do. So a lot of numbers, a lot of concepts and different things, but ultimately this comes down to individual students' lives. And so all of this work, all of this passion that you've heard from tonight comes down to wanting to impact individual kids and their world and their future. And so this video is kind of dedicated around that because this is about ML learners at ISOM. And a throwback song. Question?
Wow. Full of a lot of information, a lot of emotions towards the end. Thank you. I just want to recognize that these 3 schools that are in front of us right now, parents entrust their kids into the public schools, right? And then we offer these services to these families. Out of the 13 years that they are in the public school district, those 6 are right here with you. So very fundamental because it serves as the foundation, literally, for the rest of their lives. So thank you for what you do. Thank you for your patience for our kiddos. When we had tours of schools, I only went to middle school and high school. So, but I've got kiddos in the Bernice Wasbeck Elementary, so I definitely see the effects of what you guys do. They all come home. So all of the examples that were stated, with the writing and whatnot, I can definitely attest to that, that it is happening. And, this position that we have over here, it's such even yours, I guess, as educators, is nurturing these human beings, but at the same time being accountable and responsible that they are ready for the outside world, right, when the time comes, and then setting those foundations in that are gonna be rock solid, especially with these, I wouldn't say basic skills, they are basic, but they're very important. It's always the foundation that's very important. So I have a couple questions. I know we had the last SIP, was it spring? Spring, right? So forgive my ignorance in case I forget something. Remind me, the SIP from last time and then what the goals were presented, what have you seen, and I'm asking like all three, have you seen that your goal of attendance, I think you already touched on that, so I'll just say it's answered. But for the other two schools, what your goals were since the last SIP versus, where we're at right now, did you guys achieve those? Were those achieved?
Last year's school improvement goals?
Yeah.
Are you asking?
Last,
Because we
spring.
met in the spring. Are you asking if those impacted these goals that we're doing here tonight? I just need clarity.
Oh, yeah, because then the students from last year are not anymore.
Right.
How would I say this? Because attendance is something that goes all grade levels. Maybe remind me what your goals were in the SIP in the spring versus what were your goals, I guess? I'll start over there.
Last year, we focused on our STAR CBMs, which was foundational skills, and we've broadened that into this year's goal of their overarching reading and their overarching math.
Okay.
So it was much more narrow last year.
Okay.
In those foundational skills. And so that you build upon it,
Right.
honestly. But each year in your school improvement plan, I don't want to speak for the other two buildings, but this is my 15th year in educational leadership. And each year, you have to look at it with fresh eyes with your building leadership team because you have different clientele each year.
Right.
And so we talk about that with our teachers too. Like that thing that you've taught this way for 6 years, let's say, it might not work the same way next year because your clients are different, right? And so you have to meet them where they're at and you have to look at the data in front of you. And so it may mirror or expand on what you did the previous year, but you have to look at what is present in front of you at this time. If you're going to make data-based decisions, you have to look at the data at hand. And so we personally moved and expanded ours from the foundational skills to the overarching reading and math scores. I don't want to speak for another team, but yeah.
Thank you.
Similar, we used the SGP last year as just, kind of a holistic view of our efficacy as a school of how, can we get kids to grow? And we did, but now we narrowed that down a little bit more with just an ML focus, but still focused on growth and that metric. So it definitely informed our decision of where we wanted to focus this year, but it is different.
Does it differ like per, so if this year we have speaking, writing, reading, right? Is it going to differ for the next year, or do you think it's differs? Sorry, we've got Dr. Julie over there saying, yeah, it is going to differ. Okay, all right, well, thank you. And then...
Director Breyer, the cycle is fall, schools are working with their leadership teams, they identify a goal. It's not the only thing they're doing in their buildings. It's the one thing that they're monitoring and reporting publicly on.
Right.
And so they do that in the fall, and then the spring is when they report on outcomes of those things. And then,
Yes, I wasn't here
rinse and
last.
repeat, and then the fall they're coming up, and the district put a little bit of the district leadership team, the principals and the district administrators. We really wanted to put a focus on ML, and that's why you see these leadership teams and the principals kind of arrowed in that focus. Now next year it may be something different based on where we think the most resources will get the greatest outcomes for students.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Generally, best practices for ML students, though, apply to all students. So if
Right.
you do learn those and employ those, use those regularly, they're going to help all of the kids.
All of the kids, yeah, because the standards, I guess, are the same.
Correct.
Right, for reading, speaking, and all of those other skills. Gotcha. And then remind me, is STAR assessment a state assessment, or is it like our district's assessment?
So
STAR,
It's a nation, it's a national.
national assessment.
Yeah, it pulls from a pretty large data set across the nation, and so you can kind of change whatever your benchmarks are, but it does give a good predictor of whether or not kids, it'll take a couple different scores and then extrapolate to predict whether or not they'll be at grade level by the end of the year, so it's a pretty good predictor. So I'd say both, right?
It is not a state reported score or a national reported score, though. Do we still do a second grade report? No?
For STAR?
Yeah.
Tim does some reporting out around literacy for various funding sources. So again, the STAR it's interesting, it does not give you like a predicted validity on whether or not a student will pass the SBA. But as Rex is saying, it does a great job of letting you know like where students are trending towards where they should be at their grade level. And you check that 3 times a year. So oftentimes people will think, well, if I take the STAR score and they're showing at grade level, then they should pass the SBA. And so it doesn't necessarily correlate in that way. But it's still an important measure that we take 3 times a year for sure.
Good to know. So it's not just our district. There's many other schools nationwide that use this tool.
And
Okay.
it's adaptive, so as the kids take it, it'll go high, give them harder questions or easier questions, so you can get the student's level all the way from, first grade level up to 12th grade level. If you teach 8th grade, you can have a 3rd grade reader, it will show that, and a college level reader. So.
Interesting. Since I'm new, so I'm coming from a learner's perspective. Forgive me if there are things that might not be, others may know, but I wouldn't. So, hence I'm asking those questions. Quick question is, are there any benchmarks that are coming from like OSPI that are like state benchmarks of, okay, students that are in grade 4th should be able to, like read, I don't know, as far as complexity of stories, like, sorry, I wouldn't be able to be specific since I'm not in your field, but, or is it the schools, district can decide that or have some flexibility in terms of that, or no, there are benchmarks that we have to,
I would love for one of the principals to take that because I
Sure.
feel like I'm just sitting back here like, let me answer all the questions and not let them speak. So.
No, feel free.
Yeah, we have grade level standards and indicators of work where each kid should be at the end of each grade across different domains of reading and literacy, and so there are specific things that we're looking for, and then Melissa or Joelle can speak better to that, but determining the level of complexity of the text and how many words per minute they should be reading and to what accuracy they should be reading, and then we kind of norm that data and then kind of try to contextualize each student based on the peers, both nationally where they should be, but also within our school. It helps us target interventions. But
Those essential learning standards are what are expected of students in this grade to learn.
So there are those standards from OSPI. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
Thank
grade
you.
level learning standards, essential to their learning for that trajectory of their school career. It has changed in the state over the years. I'll age myself a little bit. They were called ELERs back in the day, the essential learning standards, GLEs, grade level learning expectations. They've gone through some phases through the course of the years of education, but there's always a benchmark for students to meet at each grade level in multiple subject areas, so.
Thank you.
Ashley, you have any questions, comments?
I want to say thank you, as I'm an older sister of 2 munchkins. I went to BBE. I'm also a nanny, and I do children's ministries at my church, so I know a lot of the kids that go to your guys' schools. And I have seen lately that a lot of kids are more social, and I'm not sure if that's connected to what you guys do, but
We'll take credit for it.
Social meaning they speak more?
They talk more, and they feel more welcome to just go up to you and be like, hey, I have a question. And I'm like, oh, okay. Because my 3rd grade girls that I did children's ministry with, they would not have done that 3 years ago. And now they're comfortable with it, with asking questions and stuff. So, yeah, thank you.
Great job, all of you. Really appreciate the work that you're doing. Specifically for ISOM, question you had mentioned under your strategic priority slide, the culture of belonging. You said 97% of students feel like they belong. Where did you get that number from? Is that from the climate data survey, or is that something else?
We have a student survey that we do 3 times per year.
Okay.
And it asks questions around, it's a student perception survey around trying to really assess about their sense of belonging. Also assess if they don't feel a sense of belonging, then where is that at?
How do they take that survey? Is that, because I would imagine elementary school students don't have, I mean, maybe they do, I don't, cell phones or whatever, but.
Not on cell phones.
Okay.
No, but we work with our counselors, and so our counselor does that survey.
Okay.
3 times per year again. And then we identify and we follow up with students that are exhibiting scores that would show that they don't have a sense of belonging. We explore as to why.
Okay, wow.
And then we look to solve that. And so sometimes that's bus, sometimes that's playground. And so we really seek to figure out what is that sense that they're feeling uncomfortable with. And sometimes they'll even communicate that, that they don't feel safe. And then what is that?
Right.
Well, because somebody didn't like my shoes, right? And then you help them understand that that's not an issue
Right.
of safety. I could see how you didn't, right? But and so helping them as our littles understand that.
Have you, and I don't know if this is a Tim thing or if this is a you guys thing, do you guys do the climate data survey, or is that only for the older classes? Someone help me remember that.
Yeah, we have done.
That's for the parents, right? So.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Oh, and so my question to that was how many, and I don't necessarily need an answer, but has there ever been a climate data survey that says something similar to this? Do you feel like your child belongs, or do you feel like you have readily available access to the school or the district? And I'm specifically thinking for multilingual parents. That's where my mind goes, because that's what we're focusing on. It would just be interesting to see that.
I think I can remember some of the questions in that parent survey are around that. I am curious about. I don't know that we have a high rate of our multilingual families that are participating
in the survey. That was my probably thought as well. Last, this is just more of a comment. We have our KPIs, and I know you guys know this, are goals to improve outcomes for all our learners. I heard from your presentation specifically goal number 2, which is language proficiency, that you guys are really looking to improve that and develop that. I heard goal number 3, which is our attendance, and that seems to be a real important thing for you specifically, and then even goal number 5, which is that climate data survey, but more, just understanding, do our kids feel like they belong? So that's awesome. I just want to congratulate you guys, and you've got Paras asking about why isn't this kid understanding me on the playground, so thank you for that. So thanks.
Sorry. Okay.
Want me to?
Yeah.
Look at us. Hey, I just want to say to the board, I appreciate your engagement with our leaders. We do have the middle school still going. One of the things that I think with elementary is we've done really excellent work in our win times and that intervention this time. And sometimes getting lost in that is our focus on our core instruction. And so it's sometimes. Everybody has brought it up, but sometimes it gets lost in all the description because it's so easy to see the interventionist. And so what you're not seeing is this real heavy focus on, we know that the best teach, I'm not going to say it, we know that those core classrooms are the key to our students making progress, and that's going to limit those interventionists. And so it doesn't come out as strong in presentations because all the other things you can see happening that are tangible. And so we really trying to make a focus on that across all our buildings, on that core instructional program, and our leaders and our leadership teams are hearing that. So I just wanted to kind of share that as an add-on to tonight's excellent information.
Yeah, thank you for giving up your Thursday again. And one of the things too, I've seen it at ISEM, but just the back to school night or having the multi-language parents come in, and that was pretty cool. I wonder if you guys do something similar to kind of usher in those parents to make them feel welcome, so they're more on board to be able to help their kids at home. And
We do ours through Meet the Teacher, that Meet the Teacher time, and get our PTA out in front of the school as well to include them in that piece. We even got, in our PTA group, got a multilingual representative to help incorporate that engagement in all levels, but we do ours through Meet the Teacher and then evening conferences. And a high percentage of participation in evening conferences with lots of translators.
Our back to school night was pretty successful, and we had many translators there too, welcoming families, and I think reaching out before, letting them know the time, having them come in, and so that was, and then when they would come in the door, if we needed to guide anyone, we did, so we had a lot of people up front ready to help those families, and then families that hadn't been at our school yet either, so yeah, so it was really good.
yeah, it's awesome. And if there's any opportunities coming up or anything, I mean, it helps that Miss Director Martinez speaks Spanish, but it's just nice to kind of see, be a part of the welcome committee or whatever.
You speak español un poquito también.
We'd be happy to take your phone numbers for when we meet more.
What are you doing on Thursday the 22nd?
3 minutes away, so.
I'm trying to get Gwen in.
Yes.
All right, thank you, you guys.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you.
Jump back.
It's my favorite finance director.
I know. Just telling somebody at work how awesome he is.
All right. I mean, like sleep on it, Ron?
How's it going? Hi, Ben.
Oh. So like, you
Like
can't
the-
I
do
don't
your
get any
head and
supporting
stuff?
teammates.
Oh, well.
Like you can't do your head like that?
I like the festive.
Yeah, everyone calls it my Christmas stuff.
I like it.
Do you mind
But
that?
it's good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, Ben.
Hi there. Hi. My name's Ben.
Do you have a video?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Kind of dancing debits and credits is what I was thinking. Do you want me to get started, or do you want me to wait for Director Fry?
Oh, I think she's probably getting tea. You can wait for her for a second.
Okay.
Good to see you again.
You too.
Yes.
I've had 2 trips and a sickness in
Yeah.
between the last. So,
Yeah. Fun trips or just kind of trips? For
Yeah, I got to go see my mom in Grand Rapids, Michigan
Very
in
nice.
September. My first birthday with her since I was 18 years old.
Wow.
And then my wife and I got a trip to Tahoe that we got to do just to get away.
Tahoe has all those rocks and things, yes? Or am I
Yeah.
wrong? Yes?
I've rock climbed there a few times. I love it down
okay.
there. So, yeah,
Now you're a rock climber.
I love climbing.
All right.
Yeah. I didn't this trip. I was like, I just want to
Rock
relax.
climbing and finance.
Yeah.
That's good.
Quite a match, huh?
Cool. Calculating the probability of the belay.
Hold on.
All right, go ahead, Ben.
Okay. Thank you for jumping to the first one. So this first page really is just a snapshot if you want to look at our district. 2 things to look at here. We closed the year with $7,127,000 in the bank, or not the bank, our fund balance is the best way to say it. And we served.
Sorry, I'm going to jump in real quick. So
Please.
just a introduction is this is a closeout of the
Right.
23-24 school
23-24,
year. So
right.
just to frame yourself, it's sometimes hard to think that way when we're in November.
Yeah.
This is the ebb and flow of fiscal years.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ben.
No, you're good.
Jump in there.
Can you go back 1 page? Thank
Yep.
you. So like I said, snapshot at August 31st of our district, 2 big things, the fund balance and our enrollment. So the K-12 enrollment, not including preschool, running start, et cetera, was 3,354 FTE for us that we served in 23-24. That was about 11 above budget. That combines all K-12 plus ALE, just for your math, as well as our TK. So that's basically our funded students that we get that we don't pass money along to other places like Whatcom Community College, et cetera. Like I said, this is just a snapshot. If you looked at these graphs, if you just looked at the graphs, you'd want to see the left one, blue is shorter than the right, and enrollment the other way around, blue should be higher than the orange. So just a snapshot, like I said. Next page, I circled 9 things. If you could just follow along with me, just so you can see. If you look over on the far right, third grade, you'll see 228.71. That was our enrollment in 22-23. I'm showing you this just to get an idea how enrollment is tracked from grade to grade. And then if you follow ourselves to the 23-24 column for grade 4, you'll see we only grew 0.10 FTE between those two, between 22-23 and 23-24. So it's just unique to show that the grade band actually only jumped just barely less than a kiddo. But if you jump to, I'm going to jump all the way down to grade 10. You'll see grade 10, we had 206 students in 22-23. That drops to 179.39 in 23-24. The major factor for that is students moving to Running Start. So it just, if someone just pulled this away, they'd say, geez, how in the world did we lose so many kiddos? We didn't. They just went from one entity to another. And then the last few things I circled, it's more just for your knowledge. If you look at 23-24 budget variance by grade band, so in K6, we were within 0.15 FTE of what we predicted in terms of budget. In terms of grades 7 through 8, we were within 5.5, a little over that. And grades 9 through 12, we were at about 16.5 as well. If that were all she wrote, we'd have gained about $175,000 in revenue. But if you follow your way down to not Running Start, but ALE, we were about 12 students short. So the net, we were about 10 kids above budget, 10 to 11. So just an image of just how, if you want to look at enrollment a little more in depth, there's a lot of noise on some of the pages we provide to you, but this is a way to kind of follow how you look at this document when we provide it. The other thing we've changed, when you saw our reports a year ago, it did not include Running Start. Is a combined, it's basically capturing all the kids we serve other than preschool. So we served in 23-24 about 3,500 students. Rounding up with head count is probably about 75 or so, plus the 40 we'd serve from preschool. So just to give you an idea of how many kiddos we serve, in the reports you'll see moving forward, we'll capture it in a style. It's something David and I have worked on, that just to show how many actual students we serve, not just K-12. So that's enrollment, just in a little snapshot for you.
Can you remind me again, how is it that you predict these numbers?
He has a magic 8-ball.
I figured that was it, but I thought there might be a little bit more detail.
It's a team effort, and we do our best to just focus on what do we look like as a total district, and then work our way backwards from there, grade level by grade level. We have a thing called the cohort model.
Okay.
And there's also a roll-up model. There's 3 or 4 different models we use. The last 2 years, we've used the 2-year cohort model, and it's been pretty close. So it really isn't my talent. It's more of us, just a team effort, using tools that are helpful to predict our enrollment. Because you'll see when we show our report for December, enrollments behave different than what we showed just now. But overall, we're within 2 kids again. It's just amazing how it just sort of plays out.
Are these off-the-shelf models that or are they publicly available? Okay.
Most districts use some version of this.
Okay.
The ESDs are great about providing models,
ESD,
as well as the state.
And you kind of adjust them for your own historical thing. It's a cohort survival model, so how many, if they start in 2nd grade, is it going up? What does it start going down? Traditionally, I'm talking before most people in the room were involved with the school district, 6th grade was always a drop-off for us. This was the school. A lot of people sent their kids to elementary school and the public school, and then different choices were made in 6th grade. And we're seeing that we're seeing those numbers increase now.
Okay.
From 5th grade, and so it's a change, right? There's been a lot of change that has happened with families and different dynamics, different options that are available. And so it'll be interesting over the years what type of new trends develop. But we're not many years beyond that major disruptive activity.
Right.
And so
Right.
So
So things should normalize a little bit, just to see more predictable trends is kind of what you're thinking, okay?
Yeah.
But yeah, I am seeing some different trends.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Huh, interesting, okay.
Actually, just momentarily, that's why I kind of showed you the two we picked out. If you just pick 1 year's worth of growth, the third grade to fourth grade, we'd be predicting 100% growth if that was the model we
Yeah.
used moving forward.
Right.
And we'd predict a heavy drop from 10th to 11th
Okay.
based upon the drop in running start. That's kind of the model we use. It's just more expanded depending on the years. On this slide, just a couple real quick things here to point out. If you look at, I'm going to move my way to 1920. I just don't even like using the term anymore, but that was pandemic time. But we're back to those levels with one qualifier I'd like to point out. So 22, 23, and 23, 24, we served TK kids as well. So that's in the mix. That
Right.
wasn't in the mix back in 1920. But we are back to basically pre-pandemic levels, and we're growing a little bit. So.
But our TK didn't make up, I'm looking at 21, 22, that didn't make up like 100, or did it, 100 plus?
No, we just,
Yeah.
go ahead, David.
When we bring up TK, where do you mean we're comparing that 1920 number to that 23-24 number?
Okay.
But yeah, so from 21, 22, we did not have TK.
Do these numbers include the program that's here at the district office?
The preschool?
Yes.
No.
Okay.
This is K-12 and ALE only.
Okay, perfect.
Or Linden Academy.
Is there, I think I've asked this before, and I don't know if you've ever found an answer, but do you have a way of knowing how many kids are in our district now that moved here from the Bellingham School District? Is there any way to figure that out?
Actually, there is. We could work with Kim to come up with a mobility report for you. Do you mind putting that in the notes, and we'll do it for the.
Bellingham that you're curious about, or any?
I'm just from, I'm just curious about Bellingham very specifically because I haven't looked at Bellingham's enrollment numbers for maybe, I think it's like 6 months ago I was looking at it. And they were down, I think, about 600 students from their pre-pandemic level. And I'm just curious. I'd be really curious because Linden has grown so much to see if there was a way to.
We can find a way to
Did we
get that.
steal those students, for lack of a better term,
Yeah.
from
And they may have stolen some of ours, so I'd be able to, we can share that for you.
Sure, that's a fair point,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm just curious about that I don't really know what that will tell me, but it's just been in my brain for a while.
Yeah.
We just make sure what we will seek to obtain. So these are students that reside are enrolled current year or last year in Linden School District. Who, if we look back at them 2 years ago in 1920 or 1819, would they have? We know what school they were enrolled in at that time, and how many of those would that capture what you're after?
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm really specifically interested in those that came from the Bellingham School District, but if you had that in aggregate by school district, that would be interesting to me as well.
Those numbers
And I
could
don't
be
want to-
potentially skewed because if they move over here, or it could be that they're in Bellingham and are driving over here for. I don't know.
Right, I
They
wouldn't
can
think
be
there's
out
a
of
ton of
district
that.
and request to come in, and we have that, and some of our students go there. We also have data how many students did that in 1920 compared to how many students are doing that in 24, 25 as well. So yes, some moved, built houses, bought houses.
Sure.
Some requested out of district. We'll find out if those numbers have changed pre-pandemic to first.
Some left to Ferndale because they got a new school.
Yeah.
I guess
Because Martinez director.
If I'm honest about what I'm trying to understand is I'm trying to understand so many school districts throughout the state have not recovered to pre-pandemic levels. And there's a narrative that says that's because parents are angry about COVID or other things. And that may be true. I'm sure it's true. I'm sure it's true sort of anecdotally, but I don't know if it makes up it tells the whole story. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yep.
So, but Linden have recovered quite nicely to pre-pandemic levels. And I'm just curious to understand if that's students that left the school district and came back, right? My kids did that. My kids left the school district during COVID and came back. And how many of them are just moved into the district?
Yeah. Mobility report, I think Jim's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
good at those, so we can find a way to get that for you.
Yeah, so have you looked at other, because I've heard Blaine's enrollments dropped too, hasn't recovered at least since COVID as well. I don't know if you've looked at that.
It's been a while since I looked at Blaine's. Bellingham was the one I was really
That's
thinking
the one
about
that-
because they were really having a significant trouble, but, yeah, I'm just curious if,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, it'd be kind of fun to do that research, actually.
All right, I'm always looking to make your life fun, Ben.
And work harder, I know. so.
Yeah.
It's job security, so.
Just one last thing on that page, if you could, just real quick. If you look at the bottom one with the circled behavior on the lines, that's how our enrollment has fluctuates from month to month. You'll see in 23, 24, it behaved in an odd way. It was, and the reason I'm bringing that up is Kim has said she's not seeing that for 24, 25.
Okay.
Our enrollment is staying flat. Hopefully it'll stay flat the rest of the way, but last year you see in December, we started taking a little bit of a dive. And we still end up with a good annual average, but it's something we're going to watch. We were not really quite sure what happened there. We had a lot of kiddos move out that time of the year, but then we had kiddos come back, as you saw, towards the very end of the year. So just kind of bizarre behavior, so we're going to take a look at
So
that.
is this a trend?
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Now, I know I've said this before when we do our monthly reports to ignore these pages, but for tonight, we won't ignore these pages. So this is our budget status report that we provide, required by law. Two takeaways I'd really like to make sure to point out on each one. There are 5 different funds reported. The first 2 are general and capital. If you could look to the far right in each one, you should see a positive number where it says variance against expenditures. If we show a negative number there, we've not broken the law, but we're not in compliance with state law. It means we overspent what you authorized us to spend. So you can see for general and capital, we're in compliance. And then if you look at ending fund balance on each one at the bottom column or bottom row for each, there's the general fund ending fund balance of the $7,000,001 we shared earlier. Capital is ending at $303,474. And then one caveat to that one I want to make sure I point out, the levy we have from 20 through 24, that expires at the end of December for us. There will be no more revenue coming into this fund unless it's district authorized from another fund after December 31st this year. And there is some debt owed from the capital to the debt service fund that we've got a plan for that we'll share at another meeting. So,
Do you know just roughly how much debt?
I believe it's about $1.2 million off the top of my head.
Okay.
And I believe Kelly may have reached out to the finance committee to try to schedule. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I saw that. Thanks.
And that's part of why I asked her to reach out. So
Okay.
Got through that.
Okay, and then the next page is just budget status. Budget status for the other 3 funds. We have debt service, ASB, Associated Student Body, and the Transportation Vehicle Fund. You'll see, I'm going to go straight to Transportation Vehicle Fund. You'll see the fund balance is pretty high, $1,103,000. There are POs out there for almost that entire amount right now. And the reason it's so high is right now it's taking about, I think I've mentioned this before, about 12 to 18 months to get a bus delivered. We had 2 delivered that were ordered 16 months ago. They were just delivered in the last 2 weeks. So they have their own supply chain issues just like everyone else right now still. I don't think I waste your time anymore on this page. Just want to make sure
I just had a
that.
random question that came to mind. Do those, if you place the order now and you don't get it for 16 months, is that, I'm assuming that price is locked in. That's not something that increases.
Yeah, we get the price whenever we make the PO at that moment, purchase order at that moment. Yeah. Yep. And like I said earlier, so this is part of the budget status report as well. The things I do want to point out, this one we're going to share a little bit more detail towards the very end of this report, but just a couple of things. If you looked at local support non-tax, we are about $285,000 better than we thought we would be in terms of our budget. To be honest with you, I shared this when we adopted the budget as well. Normally, I just roll that number over from year to year. It's one thing we're not going to do anymore. Our revenues are averaging around $600,000 to $700,000. And a lot of it's donations. The other part is our high school meal participation is pretty high, so we're getting a lot of revenue in that area as well. There are many other fluctuating things in there, but I think I'll save that for the last couple pages that we'll share. So, next page, I think, interest of time's a little bit. I
No,
think.
we're good, Ben. This
Are you
is
okay?
good work.
Okay,
Yep.
just want to make sure.
Allow time for questions.
So this is the other part of the budget stats report, and this one is basically broken down by different ways we instruct students and operate the district. A couple of ones I do want to point out, if you don't mind. Regular instruction, you'll see we budgeted for about $33.5 million, and we spent less than that. But if you go down and look a little farther, it's because we gained a lot of revenue we did not anticipate as the year started under compensatory education. So you'll see compensatory the other way around. We had to move some costs from one side to the other because those are not use or lose funds, but sort of one-time funds. And then you also see in terms of, I'm looking at other instructional programs, we ended up gaining a lot more in terms of, I think that's our LAP funds, if I remember right. We ended up with LAP funds that we had to move from basic ed as well. So even though it shows we didn't spend our regular instruction dollars, we didn't end up spending them, but we just spent them elsewhere in other
Can you
in other
speak
areas.
to the community services expenditure there? Why is there no budget on there? And yet we have year-to-date.
Of the 7,000?
Yeah.
I'd have to do some research on that one, just to be candid. So if you
Thank
don't
you.
mind, I'll look into that one. Usually that's on, I can't even remember what that before, honestly, so.
Do they get a lot of donations, Ben? Like,
The district?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for family services,
Um,
or like federal
And that would be a
dollars.
different, that's not community family services
Oh, okay.
program.
Okay.
That's a state category of community services. And so we'll have to find out what that
Yeah.
7,000 expenditure was.
Yep.
And just for my sake, that if family services, where would that fall under? Which budget or line item?
It would fall under three different areas. It'd be under regular instruction partially. It'd fall under partially compensatory education and other instructional programs. Those would be the three main areas. One example, other instructional captures our Whatcom health grant, mental health grant. Is that what you're asking? Is that what you
No,
mean?
I'm asking for like the family services that we have. Where would that?
So that'd be under regular instruction partially and under compensatory education.
Okay.
Compensatory education is a big term, but for instance, our Title I program that manages homeless intervention, that's where that would be captured.
We could also provide, by program, we could provide revenue and expenditure of family community services. We would be able to break that
Very
out by
easily,
program.
yeah, if you'd like that.
If that's something that you can do, I've been curious to see that specifically for them. What is
Yeah.
what is it that's budgeted for that, and what do we use, and where does it go to?
Yep. And we can provide the FTE that's attached to it, et cetera.
Awesome, thank you.
Yep.
Ben, remind me again, the things that fall under compensatory education instruction again.
So the big ones there would, starting with Title I, I know
Title,
that's
yeah.
Title II, Title III, Title IV, all the titles, basically.
Got it.
But, so it covers migrant education, the federal version of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions on this one? We're going to look at these in different ways over the next few slides, so. Okay, this one, there's two components to this one. It's very weird because Washington is always about 8 to 10 months behind. So I'm going to start with the slide on the bottom first, or the graph on the bottom first. So any data for 23-24 from other school districts is not available yet. So the best we can do for comparing how well we're allocating our resources is using a year ago data. So this one's around teaching and teaching support. And what we did is we captured three things. So we've got, and I repeated something by accident, I've got Whatcom County average there twice. But we've got Linden, and then compared to the state, and then compared to our select Whatcom County districts with us. So what you'll see is teaching and teaching support, our district allocates more than 70%. The state is right around 70%. And the Whatcom County average is, I think, like 69.7% or something like that. Bellingham and Ferndale, the bigger districts, are sort of equal to us. Blaine and Meridian, some of the smaller districts. Both of those and Mount Baker and Nooksack Valley are below, and I think it's economy of scale a little bit, but it is an important graph to look at. It does show that what we do is put our money towards the classroom, which you heard earlier today with the folks sitting up here. We do our utmost to put it into the classroom or into student support. To define that just a little bit for you so you know what it is, teaching and teaching support is not just simply the staff, but it's also costs for our athletics. We support a lot of students in terms of Whatcom Discovery would be captured in there. I won't pick a specific vendor, but we have a lot of vendors that help with student support in terms of behavior, et cetera. Those are all captured in that. And then
Curriculum?
Yep, yes it is. Like our adoption a year ago, that would count in there.
Okay.
So, she owes me one now, but
There's two Whatcom, is there two Whatcom counties?
that's what I was saying. I made a mistake and
Oh, I'm
repeated
sorry.
it.
I
Yeah.
didn't-
We're good.
Got it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Take the average of those two.
Take the average of them, it's the same number. All right.
One's closer to the other bar.
This is kind of the one that I always want to look at when we're looking at how we did over the year personally. This one's looking at what we budgeted in terms of salaries, benefits, supplies in the different categories. And I'm going to just walk you through if you don't mind. So we budgeted for about $25.5 million in certificated salaries. That includes administrators plus teachers. So it's anyone that holds a certificate where the job requires the certificate. We spent about $25.85 million, so we were about $400,000 greater than what we budgeted, $350,000 to $400,000 greater. In classified salaries, we were almost right spot on that one. You look at employee benefits, a big change there happened right as we started ending the budget process. We ended up with the state reducing our retirement rates, so that's why benefits end up lower than what we planned, is the retirement rate drop. And we also were conservative. We budget for almost everyone to get SEB benefits because most of our staff work more than 3.5 hours per day. But we ended up with some staff that were not eligible for SEB, so that's part of the reason that number is lower. So,
SEB is the insurance
acronyms, my bad.
Cooperative of all public school employees.
Yeah, thank you. And then if you follow your way down, supplies, purchase services, travel, and capital, those are our MSOC's material supplies and operating costs. We were within, if I remember right, about $300,000 of that number. The one thing I want to qualify in there, if you look at the total, all those numbers, inside of this, I think it's under purchase services, we have $300,000, David and I always set aside a part of every budget for just in case enrollment doesn't come in. So the reason we actually behave better on MSOCs is mostly because we didn't need that number. So just to share.
How come the supplies is so low?
Half.
Yeah,
Not quite half.
close to it. Are we just not buying?
No, so that one, actually, a lot of what we do when we build the budget, excuse me, we put most of it into just one category. 5610 is the actual supplies. Like building budgets, we just put it all under 5610. They end up spending it on a lot of other things that are not supply related. For instance, copiers and printers go through the contractual services.
That's not, or is that with the computers that students get? Those, would that fall under this?
Same exact thing,
Okay.
yeah. So for instance, I believe we budgeted for Mark's allocation, I'm just going to call it that, for our tech allocation. It was under supplies, and we ended up, you'll see capital outlay was about $300,000 greater than what we budgeted. And that's a perfect example right there. We budget for technology under supplies, and we put it in the category of capital outlay.
So this is a silly question, and I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but.
It's all good.
This, for supplies, that couldn't be used for anything building facilities wise, is that correct? The
Yes.
MSOC, it can? Or it can't?
It can.
It can be used?
Yeah. As long as it's legal.
Okay, I would hope so.
Just to qualify.
Like paper towels and soap and,
Yeah.
and cleaning materials, and it's also copy paper.
Fuel,
Yep, all those
food,
things.
yeah. Yeah.
So this is these are big buckets that
Yeah.
are defined by objects. and then they get more specified as the year goes on. That's why you see some greater expenditures in some of the other areas.
Is there a plan to use the remaining, because this is up to August, September?
No, so we're done with the year, so this would be it's a reset button now in September.
Okay. That's right. Fiscal year end, at the very top. Got it.
What's that?
No, nothing. I'm talking to myself.
Sorry. Okay. Now looking at just the snapshot that we talked about right when we started the presentation here. So two things. We budgeted, just to be transparent, we budgeted, I think, $2.7 million to end the year at. We're finishing at 5.062. So that's a fixed number no matter what. We started 23-24 with $5 million or so in terms of a fund balance. This is not a reconciled version of it. It's just to give you a big picture of the major things that contributed to us growing our fund balance to $7.1 million. So our enrollment, as I mentioned, was about net of 10 over, so there's $100,000 of revenue right there. Our local receipts, as I mentioned earlier, they were $285,000 better than what we planned. Our state special purpose, it's mischaracterized. That should be our state. Do you remember we mentioned the state came through during the budgeting process and said, we're going to bump your 23-24 MSOC allocation? That's what that is. We were bumped about 125, and then we had some other allocations they adjusted as well. Tim did a good job getting us a second mental health grants allocation, so that's above and beyond what we budgeted for. We budgeted for $80,000 in safety net. We ended up, Rebecca did a great job getting, I think, $360,000 if I remember right. Narlene's not here, but our child nutrition program, which I'll share on the next slide as well, has done very, very well, almost too well, for lack of a better term. You'll hear why in a bit here, but it was about $150,000 more than what we planned. Last year when we closed out 22-23 books, we had planned to use up all of our pandemic rescue dollars. We ended up having $400,000 that we needed to expend in 23-24. So there were expenditures, but there were existing expenditures we could just allocate. So we ended up with about $400,000 of pandemic funds. As we looked at earlier, our budget for our certificated staff and classified staff was within about $70,000 of what we budgeted, and our MSOCs were about $355,000 better. And then the rest is just kind of rounding, but the net jump in our fund balance is about $2 million this year. It was supposed to be about $1 million, and I'll explain in the next slide of why it's the $2 million versus the $1 million. Any questions before we move on? Is that okay? Okay, so in terms of fund balance of how the state looks at us, there are really 5 main categories they look at. The first one is non-spendable. So if we were done right now, we had $780,000 in the bank, we'd have no money, basically, is the best way to say it, because we paid $780,000 towards current year costs. That's an asset that belongs to us, but it doesn't help us moving forward. And we have inventory that's basically in the food service program. So that's non-spendable fund balance right now. So $780,000 of that $7 million is not touchable, for lack of a better term. Restricted, that's the one I want to kind of mention, the food service program. So our food service program in 2021 and 21-22 behaved extremely well in terms of financial health. During the pandemic, basically everyone could eat for free. During those 2 years, our fund balance grew $600 and some odd $1,000 per year. So we had those 2 years alone, our fund balance, whatever the fund balance was back in 21-22, $1.2 million of it belonged to food service, which means it's not touchable, and I literally mean that. The only thing you can spend it on is food service. So that's most of that 1.469 you see up there. There's a restricted amount, and I can't recall what the other part of that is for. Oh, I know what it is. Our TK program, we have $80,000 as well that we did not spend, so essentially it's owed to the TK program as well. And then we have, I believe, $50,000 for another program. I can't remember what that was for. Those are the two biggies.
What can the TK, the $80,000 be used for?
It can only be used for costs that go to TK. So a couple examples, if we hired another teacher, I mean, that's not a realistic example this time of the year, but it'd be for that type of purpose.
How about like equipment?
guess it could be used for that as well.
Question for TK. I've heard that, okay, I guess first question would be, where do we get the funding for TK? It's the same pool that we get for the rest of the programs that we have, right? The other grades?
No, actually, it's a different kind of structure. So in 22, 23, I might get them backwards, but I know which one's which. But 22, 23, I believe was all federal or state, one of the two. No, it was state. And 23, 24 was all federal. And they, unlike us, but I won't say what I want to say. We can't move money around the way other individuals around the world can. Anyway, so we used our federal money was used with that, basically using rescue dollars, best way to say it. Pandemic rescue dollars were used to fund TK for 23, 24.
The state.
Yeah. With federal dollars, but the state gave it to us through pandemic rescue dollars, so.
And then this year it's been moved to.
Back to the state. Yeah.
But not K-12 basic education.
Yeah.
Right. Because I've heard there were, that there's some problem with funding for the
There is.
TK.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what I've heard, so that's
You're
what I was
accurate,
curious
yeah.
about.
I'll let David speak to that
There's
if you'd
some
like.
volatility right now in the revenues in the state to support the TK program statewide.
Right.
So there's some work being done
So,
in the current fiscal year.
right, in the current fiscal year.
Yeah.
But is it like moving forward though, since it's a very new program, like do we, I mean, I know you can't predict it, but just I guess, looking up for opinion here, do you think that this is a program that, you know, obviously with the funding, it will keep going, but how does it look like?
Yeah, I'll say it this way. There is volatility. There is a universal agreement that consistent learning for opportunities for 4-year-olds makes a significant difference families, and that I'm confident that communities will have access to resources to be able to provide that level of service. What bucket of money, where it comes from, who's the lead agencies related to that. There is some fluidity, and I think you'll be reading about it in the next legislative session as well, where that comes out. But I'm confident that I think there's enough recognition of the importance that
And
the
support of
resources
that
will be there for
program.
early childhood learning. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
This might be an Arlene question. Does her, or do you have any sense of that 1.4 million, that, like, what can it be used for?
Actually, we have a real good sense of it. So we're not the only district in this boat because of the pandemic. So what we worked on it about a week and a half ago, but she's been working on it for about the last 6 months. She came up with a 5-year spending plan.
Wonderful.
That we proved to the state required us to provide that to them.
Okay.
And just to be transparent as well, we self-reported. We were the first one. I couldn't believe no one asked us. And we said, we have a problem here. I was worried about our auditors asking, so we got hold of LSPI and said, what do we do about this? And they said, please turn in a 5-year plan. And they said, well, we'll be reaching out to other districts now, thanks to you. So.
Can we
No, it's more of a, now they're probably going to beat me up when I go see them at Wasbo.
That's good. Can we see that 5-year plan? Is
What's
that
that?
something, can we see that 5-year plan? I'm very curious to know what is it that food services wants to spend 1.4 million in?
Yeah, we can, well, can I give you one example and then I won't go too deep?
Sure.
But we did hire, Arlene, a office professional that's going to be about 35,000 per year. So right out of the gate, there's going to be.
Will she help with some of those processing of the applications that are sent in, all the?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yep. And then we talked about replacing a freezer or two every year.
Great.
They're not cheap. We're talking $50,000 a shot, so. And it isn't the full 1.3. Our plan is to get down to 750, which is what 550.
Oh, okay.
Which is what we're allowed to have in the bank.
Million
We're
is
allowed
still
to
a
have-
lot of money
it's
to
still
spend,
quite a
so that's
bit.
great, yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
So the resolution that we just approved for the unpaid balances of 20,000, is that something that can come out of this?
No, actually, it goes the other way. It ends up being revenue we have to give back to food service because it's lost revenue for food service. So it comes out of other district resources. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Working our way down. So, by the way, we did provide what the general definitions are down below. But for assigned fund balance, now it's the first one that's sort of touchable, for lack of a better term. It's accessible. We had talked about transferring $1 million as we move through the ending fund balance process. With some research with our attorneys and with OSPI, we were instructed, until you all give us the authority, we can't book that we're going to do it. So, but what you'll see we purposely put it in the slide here, there are some major projects that do need our financial attention. The high school track, right now we're not able to compete in our league officially with our track, so that's one that needs an upgrade. It's about $150,000.
Is that something that needs to get approved by the board? Or is that something that, how does that work? Like if let's say we need the new track, how does that work?
David, you want to speak to it, or?
The amount of the replacement of the track will require board approval.
Okay.
Part of what we're going to talk about, when he said we were going to transfer the funds, that was going to be a board action. Now we learned that we can't do that in the previous year, so we have to get to the current year. And so we're going to bring to the board, working through the finance committee, a recommendation for an expenditure, for a transfer into capital funds to complete some of those projects that are currently being identified and prioritized. And so then that would be a board action. And then on top of that, when the contract gets awarded to do a project, then a board approves those expenditures as well because of the size of them.
So we're not contracting people prior to getting the board approval for something like that to be done? Or do we already have them on contract and they're just waiting?
We do not have them on contract. We have cost estimates that are provided.
Bids and et cetera.
So question for the playground that was at Linden Academy, was that something, because of the size of the expenditure of that did not require board approval?
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
How much does it have to require board approval, just for my knowledge?
75,000.
And 75,000 plus? Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is that accurate?
I believe so. We'd have to look
It's
through our
maybe
board
different when it's
policy.
a federal expenditure.
Yeah.
We try not to do a lot of federal
Yeah.
expenditures because they're really complicated.
We use federal for staff costs as best as we can. Just two other ones we'll point out from this one, we'll move on. But the other one, you've been through the discussion with all the security folks that were here. So right on there right now is district-wide safety upgrades. That is one that we'd like to prioritize on the list. And again, we'd bring it to you for the PO purchase order side for approval. And then the last one is the laptop rotation. Mark has done a great job coming up with a rotation plan for all of our students are one-to-one devices, finding a way over the next 6 years, replacing one on amount every year over a 6-year cycle.
Are we still behind in that replacement or have we caught up?
Have we what?
Have we caught up to, because I remember last time I asked about the laptop rotation and we were behind.
We're getting closer, much closer.
Perfect. Okay.
And this will contribute to that.
Yeah.
And this list wasn't intended to be the information night to provide those dollars. This is just to give you an idea about what falls within there. There's still work to be done, and you'll be involved in some of that work so that we can talk about TK playgrounds and
laptops,
and tracks and all those
Yeah.
types of things.
Yep.
Okay?
Then the last two on this one, minimum fund balance, as you know, you have the 5% board policy. So that's what that is. And what we've calculated that on is basically is taking 5% times our expenditures for 23-24. So that's that number there. I think it ended up being a little higher than what I thought it should be, like by about $10,000 because we made some expenditure corrections when we closed the year. But we decided let's not mess with the number. That's the number reported to OSPI. So after all is said and done, there's only about $1,017,000 that actually, because we have to maintain the minimum 5%, we're planning to move some money to capital. There's about $1,017,000 that's kind of discretionary, if you want to call it that. I don't like the term unassigned. I like the term discretionary better, but that's the term OSPI uses. So it gives you an idea of what our fund balance looks like.
Another silly question, but something I've been curious about is the ASB fund. Is that something do you know if Principal Freeman has communicated with the ASB about there's money available or explain the intricacies and complexities of what that can be used for?
Between him and the athletic director McKee, yes, they are working on a plan for that.
It came up at a board meeting, and then you had a meeting with them.
Right, but like within 2 days after that.
Wonderful. Shaking your heads. I'm glad.
Yeah, I've had multiple conversations with Freeman about it.
Awesome. Great.
Yep.
Thank you.
So similar to food service, a plan to be able to spend down that to have not such a high.
Yeah, great.
Is that the general theme that's being talked about?
Any details about that you can share, Ashley? Like, what are some things you guys are discussing with them?
Well, I'm also friends with a lot of the kids on the ASB, and we talk about it, and then I go to Freeman, and I just ask him about the ASB funds, and I'm like, hey, what's going on? Talk to me.
Good.
And that's pretty much.
It's not gonna be like for energy drinks or anything like that.
Milkshakes. I know. I mean, we got rid of the vending machines.
Oh. That's good. Less income then.
Yeah. We did get rid of the vending machines. We have expanded the snack bar, but yeah.
So maybe we'll follow up with some more details on that.
Yeah. And then last slide, this one's kind of Director Verberg, this was for you. You asked for a waterfall graph, so there's a waterfall.
Aim, please.
It's a visual of everything we just talked about.
That's cool. You do such a good job. I know we've said that before, but I find this so fascinating.
Thank you.
So thank you. It's very important.
What was our budgeted beginning fund balance was 3.8, right?
Yes. And then we started with 5,062,000.
So the restricted, the 1.46, 1.5 million, that was present at the beginning of the previous fiscal year.
Yes, it was. Yeah, most of it.
So 2.4. So our real beginning fund balance would I don't know what I'm trying to figure out in my brain, but I'll figure it out and then I'll ask you about it in an email.
Okay. It seems like you're trying to figure out how much of that forecasted general fund balance was restricted. Is that, or what that would
I know, because that was present.
That's right.
That was present prior to the beginning of the previous fiscal year.
Right.
I'm just trying to figure out how, never mind. I'll think about this some more and probably have some questions about how that's presented in the future. And your 5-year plan that you mentioned for the 1.4 is to pay down the 1.4.
Down to about 550.
Down to 550,
right.
And the reason we do that, just last thing, the reason it's 550 is we're allowed to keep 3 months' worth of operating costs on the books.
Right, and that plan will be in excess of budgeted expenditures. What would necessarily have to be, wouldn't it?
Yes, that would be the end fund balance after operating in a whole fiscal year. Within food service, there'd be a reserve of 550,000.
Yeah.
At the end of the 5 years.
Yeah, so right now, it'd be 550, if that were our number, that's what would be on that graph.
Yeah.
Right, but your 5-year plan to spend down the 900 grand or whatever that roughly comes to, 1/5 of that, it might shift a little bit, but on average, 1/5 of it would have to come out of the current budget. Current fiscal year's expenditures, and I guess what I'm asking is that in excess of, or did you already figure that into the current year's budget?
No, we haven't.
Oh, good question.
Costs were added, I get where your question is now. There are costs being added to our 24-25 budget tied to food service with the purpose
Associated with the
of
5-year
eating
plan.
up some of that fund balance.
Okay, that we haven't seen yet. We haven't approved the budget yet.
You-
Or
you've
we did approve the budget.
Yeah, it's, frankly, it's part of that $1 million of budget capacity we talk about when we meet.
Right.
That's-
Oh, you're gonna pull it out of there. So it's so it's not a net increase in the overall budget.
No, it's just reducing how much
Yeah, okay.
authority.
Okay.
Is capacity to be able to expend it.
Right.
It's been approved. As soon as you adopt a budget, it's mute because things change.
That's right.
and then you work within that capacity. And that million has provided that capacity. Now, if we get a bunch of students, we may extend that. We may go beyond that capacity that's been approved by the board of directors, which would then require
We'd have to
to
prove
come
it,
back and
right.
what's the term again?
Budget extension.
Budget extension,
extension, right.
and extend that expenditure. We add more teachers, we add more paraeducators. Can't fit within the capacity.
Makes sense.
I have one question, on the revenue analysis.
Can you point me out what page that is? Sorry.
That would be,
Oh, I found it. Very good.
you got it, okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to know, or maybe I guess more on the expenditure side, I wanted to know how much of our levy, I should remember, but I don't, since I don't work with numbers every day, so help me out. Just a ballpark of percentage is, do we support, let's say, salaries out of the levy? We do that, right?
In general, yes, we do. And it's kind of complicated to explain, but we're funded with a certain amount of units. They call it units, which is kind of weird. It's FTE. But it's more complicated than that because we end up paying our folks more than what we're allocated from the state of Washington.
Right.
For instance, when David and I did our analysis a year ago, our teachers, our certificated staff were, I would think, $10,000 below what we're funded for per employee, if I remember right.
So the term is that prototypical funding model. What does a prototypical school cost? And so your number of students generate a number of teachers, number of paraeducators, number of secretary or administrative assistants, number of custodians, and then the local board develops a program. And within that development of that program, it goes beyond that prototypical model in most areas, and those levy funds allow that to happen. If we didn't have the levy funds, we would only operate within the
budget.
within the prototypical funding model, the revenue. It's the reason why there's levies is so there is some local control. The prototypical model is not intended to fund everything that a community would like to see funded. And so then the community contributes through the levy.
Right.
So the short answer is yes,
Right,
levy
yes.
dollars are used to fund
paraeducators.
paraeducators.
Yeah, because based on, the information that I got from you guys about McCleary, right, I'm new to everything. So again, coming from a learner's perspective, I'd be interested to know, and maybe you might already have it since you guys did the union contracts before we, the newly elected people came on the board. What I wanted to see was like a trend of has the use of levy funds to help me with the words to
Enhance.
support, or enhance or support, the salaries. Now I wouldn't know which teachers, but yes, I'll just say teacher salary. What's the trend of that? Let's say, for the since McCleary or something like that. I'd be very interested to know. I don't, and maybe you have it on hand, maybe not.
That one I think we have to work on, but I think we could come up with something.
Yeah. But that is, I don't want you to.
It would probably just be the gap between the prototypical funding model and what the cost is, and we could see a trend over the years.
Over years.
Yeah.
For different categories.
So McCleary was what year?
17, 18.
Okay. Yeah, so.
You guys are okay with that?
It's great.
Oh, yeah, it'd be interesting.
Yeah.
More information's always good.
Yeah.
Just want to learn.
I get a little homework, that's okay.
Yeah.
Had a talk with some other, friends, school board members, and we were talking about that. I'm glad that you guys did it before we came, but then also lost that learning opportunity of kind of seeing how does that work. So they were describing, with their own districts, how they did it, did not. So I didn't really have much of a outlook, but this was some, my takeaway of, interesting, because they, exactly what you said is the prototypical model for funding should have been, it all should come from the state, but it doesn't, right? So, and then with that salary table being eliminated after McCleary, how has that affected us, for the good, for the better? So that would be one of those key points that would tell us.
For your notes, mix factor, we'll be able to share kind of what the mix factor would have looked like in 17, 18 versus now. That was how we were funded in the past. So,
Mixed factor.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Nerdy term,
Yeah,
sorry.
he added another concept that we didn't talk about. The mixed factor takes your staff and takes their years of experience and years of schooling,
Right.
and then creates a multiplier. So that every community is a little bit unique in the amount
sure.
of revenue they're receiving for the teachers. So if you're a school that has more senior teachers and more advanced degrees, you're going to receive a little bit of a resource as a result of the mixed
Yeah.
factor.
From the state.
Interesting.
From the
Used
state.
to. We
Used to. We
yeah.
don't.
Used to, you don't
It doesn't
anymore.
happen any longer.
Not
Right. Now we
anymore.
receive the average, just the average.
Yeah, McCleary took that away.
Right.
Or not took it away, but changed it. Let's
Changed
put it
it.
that way.
So you could argue that it would incentivize schools to hire less expensive educators, right? If you
Yeah.
were driven by fiscal
Right.
reasons,
It
that
could-
doesn't result in
yeah.
better outcomes for students, and so we've been a district that hasn't operated that way.
Great.
Hasn't.
Has not.
Okay.
It would not
Thank
want to,
you.
yeah. Clarify for the recording. yes.
Right, right. Because I thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Any other?
Oh, sorry.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
Okay, moving on to second reading for policy 5515, work for secondary traumatic stress. What's that?
Yeah, so I am recommending adoption of 5515, workforce secondary trauma stress, traumatic stress. This policy is a result of the passing of Senate Bill 1363 in 2021, and I have added, it aligns with the board's core values of a safe and a safe working environment. During the first reading on October 4, there was no discussion about amending the language within the policy. So there have been no notes added. No notes added. I'm recommending adoption.
And I'll entertain a motion for adopting policy 5515.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, motion made, seconded. Any questions?
Yeah, I have one. Do you have the procedure ready that is to go with this, or is still underway?
It's still underway.
Okay.
Should
And
be
then-
relatively easy to put together.
Okay, because I had a question, and I'll just ask this, maybe we'll have an answer, maybe not, that's okay, I mean, later on. It says that the board hereby establishes this district-wide workforce mental health committee. It doesn't really specify like how many, like, how is that gonna work? Do you have some insight on that?
Yeah, that will be outlined in the procedure. We talked about including some of our we have 4 unions, some union leadership from each of those. We think they have a shared interest in this as well. We have educators both certificated and classified at each level. We talked about administrators, Molly Mitchell-Muma and Tim Metz. Are the ones kind of driving that development of that team. They've had some discussion. This actually surfaced from a high school teacher, and so we've been able to meet with that high school teacher and a few other people, I think, joined that initial meeting. And so there's been some preliminary, what does an effective team look like, and so I'll lean on them to let me know what maybe should be included within those procedures.
Yeah, do you have any questions?
Would this procedure be like maybe presented as an informational item, since this is something very new that we're taking on as a board?
It can be, or we can just post it out there and it's available to you to look at.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we can go from there.
Yeah. It usually is, if it gets adopted, we probably have the procedure within the next couple of weeks, if not sooner. And then just let you know that procedures.
It would be nice to get, to maybe get regular updates from you as to the implementation of the committee, and then what actions the committee has taken to help our educators with secondary traumatic stress. It says here once a year, but maybe in that first year, it would be good to have a quarterly update or something, or just whenever there's something to report so that we know that this, that something's being done here. I mean, I trust that something's gonna be done, but I'm somewhat interested in this topic, so.
And like, how does it, equivalent into like the practicality of it in practice? How's it going on? I think that would be great to know. Is there any, it says district-wide workforce, so this means that people in the committee would be just district employees, right?
Yeah. That's who we have access to.
Okay. And this would be, whatever work would be done within the committee, that's paid work, right? I know, that's a stupid question, but.
Yeah, typically that is, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Does, do school employees through benefits have access to an employee assistance program as well, including this? Okay. Okay, that's good. Okay.
Yeah. Through Peace Health.
Through Peace Health?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you talking about like how this is gonna get funded? No.
Well, some of what's in here, could be covered by EAP.
It'll be one of the resources.
One of the resources that's there.
We advertise, we communicate with our workforce the availability of EAP 3 times a year.
Right.
But now there'll be a little bit more, it's kind of sporadic sometimes, right? You get different things happen, they come out. Now we'll develop a more systemic set of resources. That's kind of the vision, having a website where staff can go, have those actual resources there, learn about what secondary trauma is.
Sometimes people are reluctant to take advantage of those, even though they're offered, so maybe that's,
Yeah, and I would say, as someone who worked in corporate America for a long time and had access to EAP, that EAP was useful for some things and not for others, and I would say that it was mostly not useful to me personally.
Yep.
And so that's not to be critical of that as an opportunity. This as something that I have, and take it with a grain of salt, as a guy who's worked in social services for a whopping 8 weeks or something. But I've experienced secondary traumatic stress, and it's something I don't think I really truly realized until we had a class on it over at Christian Hope Association. You were in that class, and I realized, wow, this is a really, like, I already know that I'm experiencing this. And I think what I'm really interested in is making sure that our educators are not just have a list of resources, but that our committee is actively finding or actively helping teachers, educators, administrators, janitors, whomever, deal with the things that come with secondary traumatic stress. So I think it's really good that we're doing this, and I think that's why I'm asking about the continued. Anyway,
really appreciate your interest. We're pleased that this has surfaced and that we have a pathway to be able to respond to it. We will definitely commit to keeping the board updated.
And this is something that's unique to our district for now, right?
No.
Are there other districts?
There are
that
other districts that
have
been working on this as well. There are other districts that have not, and so we're learning some things from neighboring districts as well. So,
that's great.
We have a good culture in our county, if you read the superintendent update around the support of SUMAS with the loss of a student, and the mobile response team, that has brought together our counselors. It's brought together certified mental health specialists in the county, different type of response, but it's created a community that includes all school districts in Whatcom County, including Bellingham. And so then there's been a lot of investment in this area, and Linden School District has ways to grow in this area. one of our character flaws maybe as a community is you're tough. This is what you do.
Right.
Right?
Right.
This is how we go. And so this is a good step in identifying that.
And I think it also is valuable to kind of be in the schools to see what the teachers are doing, but also to kind of ask them about, I mean, I'm sure Ashley, you have friends that are struggling and you know, the teachers hear those stories.
Mhm.
It's hard.
Yeah, when we were at Vospike, right, and we kind of talked about it, I leaned down, what year did you graduate? She said 2020. And she's rocking it as a paraeducator, right? She graduated in 2020.
Yeah.
And, you know, she's meeting students that she may not understand. You know, she's going to learn some things about maybe some of the things that they're going through or have gone through. And how do we support, you know, early 20s, 30s, 40-year-olds in that fatigue that can happen when exposed to that. Sorry, we talked about this a long time.
So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Advisory vote.
Advisory vote, I'm sorry.
Ashley may have something to share about this one too, right? You probably receive a great amount of value in this one
Yes.
for our educators.
Yeah, I struggled a lot as a freshman, and teachers were really my support. I don't know what I put my teachers through. Yeah, I think it's definitely something we need.
I will tell you this, your teachers wanted to do that.
Yeah.
There's not a feeling of, man, we got to do this. It's just, when we do it, we got to make sure we
Yeah,
support them
I'm
doing
still
it.
really close to all those teachers, so it's just, and they're not even my teachers anymore, so.
And it sounds like you're giving back.
Yeah.
I think we're done.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Information from board directors.
All right, anybody else want to go first before I go?
I'll go first. We just wanted to update the board on, Director Breyer and I have been going through just some of the teaching and learning stuff for the sexual education. We went through everything. We had a good meeting and discussion, and really pleased with just everything that, like, there's no red flags, no big alarms or anything like that. So I just wanted to clarify what some of you already knew, but had to see it from my own eyes. So
It's fantastic.
Thanks for doing it.
Thanks for doing that.
yeah, so it's good, and yeah, it's good. Secondary thing, we had the opportunity to walk through the high school the other day, and saw a lot of great things. Saw a lot of things that eventually I'd like to kind of address. Some of those things can't be addressed till we get a new building. But one of the things that I was kind of just unhappy with is the way that we have a policy that talks about our cell phone use, and it's not enforced at all, from my observation. And it's not I'm not trying to throw mud here, but just simply observing. I was having a discussion about our cell phone usage, and the irony of a student having a discussion here, and to see a student right there that walks out of class and is just on their cell phone, while I'm getting a discussion on the importance of, what our teachers do, not to have cell phones out and this and that, and just not seeing the consistency between our teachers having, like, some had a phone caddy, which is awesome to see, and others, and I hear from kids like, oh yeah, my teacher doesn't really care. So it's just a point of observation, where I'm not overseeing Principal Freeman or all the teachers, but as a representative of the school board, and I think that was one of the things I was kind of disappointed on. Very pleased with a lot of things. We've got awesome teachers, and obviously we have seen that all our administrators really care. But that was just one of the blatant things that I think we're teaching. If we're so wanting to have social emotional learning as well, I think one of the things that we're teaching our students is that it's okay to break rules if your teacher allows it, or you can kind of figure out. I just want us to have a consistent standard. That's kind of accountability. Like, you set a standard, you let them know what it is, and then you give them the opportunity to own up to their consequences. So, just one of my observations. I wanted to let the board know.
Well, our policy allows building administrators and teachers discretion. So if one teacher allows it, another teacher doesn't, or one building allows it, another building doesn't, that is consistent with our standards.
And maybe that's maybe my issues with the policy itself then. 'Cause it just seems really wishy-washy to me, just from my observation. Because
I was there too, just to second all of what he's saying.
So,
yeah.
and I understand kids have to talk to their parents here and there, and let them know that they're going to go to be late after school or whatever. But so
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but at the same time, there's a reason we put the cell phone policy in place. So if we're going to have a cell phone policy and we're not going to follow it, then what's the purpose of the policy?
Yeah,
Well, who says we're not following it? The policy allows the building administrators to. So if you're telling me that we have a policy that says that the teacher says there's no cell phones, but the teacher's not enforcing that, that's one thing. But if we have a policy that allows an administrator or teachers to have discretion in that, and one teacher is saying, I'm fine with that in my classroom, and another one's not, then we are following that.
I'd have to go back and look at exactly the verbiage for the usage for the cell phone, but I think what I observed was it was just distracting.
Yeah.
And that's.
And maybe we need to revisit, like you said,
So
the
I
policy.
think that I want to make sure that our kids are focused on learning, and call me old school. That's
I think this is the first time I'm hearing your observations on that. I do think that when you visit our schools and you observe some things like that, reaching out to me would be very appropriate to be able to kind of allow that to happen. If you hear and then kind of sharing some of your grievances or things that you notice, you're going to begin to be viewed as inspectional on some of that work, and where is it that we need to improve? Where is it that we have some strength? Where is it that the policy might be able to be strengthened? And as a board director, if you identify those things, reaching out to me to share those things will allow then I think that process to happen.
I think part of it is inspectional, though. I mean, that's as a board director, I want to go into these schools and make sure that our principals are performing in the way that they should. I know it's your responsibility as well, but like that's part of our job is to make sure that you're doing your job well. And I'm not saying you're not. I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus. I'm just I
think if that is what we're going to do, then we want to create some structures for that, so that we maybe know what it is that we're coming to inspect and want to do that, and that would be a respectful thing to do of the professionals.
And I hope that what I'm doing right now is not disrespectful.
No, I just want it to improve.
Yeah.
And I think that we can improve that, and I think that insight is really valuable to do that. And so I want board directors to go into our buildings and then be able to engage with me on ways in which we can improve, which may result in policy changes.
Yeah.
And I think that will allow for a greater process that will result in better outcomes. I know the high school has worked on this since last January. They have some drift. We talked a little bit to the principal. I know some teachers also get frustrated when other teachers don't follow through with what the stated expectations are, and so that entity is, I think, really prepared to be able to respond to that. And if the superintendent says to the building administration is, we'd like to see greater following of the policy, that's a very appropriate process in which improvement can happen.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take you up on your offer to share some things I experienced
Yep.
prior to the policy as a parent, I think. So, just from my perspective, but I don't want to go into it here. But.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then that was kind of the question we were talking about. Does the policy need to be adjusted or not, or is it really something at the schoolhouse and within leadership? That's kind of the discussion we were having outside that.
Yeah, we had that moment where we did a drill on the cell phone
Yes, we
policy.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did, so we did have that moment.
Yeah, so.
I think before we move on to just, because I've also surfaced this a couple of times, but then it doesn't go anywhere. We just talk about it, it doesn't go anywhere. So I want to ask this board, are you interested in visiting the cell phone policy that we have?
Not
Are
at
you
all.
interested in doing any work towards that?
I got no
Be it
interest in it
enforcing-
unless a principal or Dr. Van Wyk tells me that we got a problem with our policy, that our policy doesn't allow them to enforce rules that reduce the distractions of cell phones. And I'll tell you why this is very personal to me, because my daughter has a medical disorder, and she was told she couldn't bring her cell phone to school. But she was also told that the school would not administer the medicine that she would need if she went into adrenal shock. So what did we do? We said, take your cell phone, put it in your pocket, don't take it out unless it's an emergency. I mean, we had an argument with the high school on that subject. If you don't want your kid to take a cell phone to school, then don't let your kid take a cell phone to school. If your kid's being disruptive with their cell phone, then deal with that. But I'm absolutely opposed. There's this sort of national narrative about cell phones that I'm not interested in it. If our administrators come to us and tell us we got a problem, our policy does not allow us, fine, let's do it. But other than that, I think we have a good policy that our building administrators and teachers can use to effectively deal with this issue on their own. I don't see why we need to spend so much time.
So respectfully, I wasn't finished quite yet with my question. But I do feel you, because it looks like it's a very, coming from a personal point of view. I'm just gonna, I guess, reiterate it. I don't have any, we're all here for the job, so I don't have any, I'm not pushing it. It has been resurfaced a couple of times. I'm not saying we ban it all. I'm not suggesting anything at all. I just want to ask whether or not, do we want to visit the policy? Do we want to see whether it's, to check into, just like Mr. David Vanderyacht was saying, is it being enforced? Is that where the problem is, right? Something like that. Do you want to go further than that, or do we just make the comments and that's it?
I'm interested to hear perspectives from people who are in those positions where they oversee. I don't agree, Director Owsley, with the assertion that we need to hear from a principal or someone in administrator. I think that's an argument from authority. But I think that I hear what you're saying, and so I think that there's a way to be empathetic and accommodate unique situations like what you just described. I think that's essential. I think that's not the heart of this board or of any of our teachers or administrators that I've interacted with. We're here to help students. And so I would like to revisit this. I think it's important to discuss.
I just ask that you guys look over the policy and address any concerns first with David, Superintendent Vanderyacht, and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
Because I know
That
that
seems
when
reasonable.
it was implemented, I know that there was a reason for it, and so I'm always for a grace period, of course, and, yeah. Anything else?
Just wanted to kind of go over what I experienced going on my school tours a couple weeks ago. Was it 2 Fridays ago? I don't know if I'm running together from, is that right? So toured Bernie's Vosback. I'd never been there, and the middle school, which I've been to many times, but just the common thing between both of them was just the professionalism of the staff. The other thing that stuck out, and I even told some folks from my work about this, is how great our school district is just the principals knowing the kids' names by name and watching them interact with the students. And I was just so impressed with that in both schools and just the things I saw. Got to tour several of the WIN sessions at the elementary school and got actually taught some math got to see the high cap, And so there was a group of young ladies that were teaching, I think me and principal, how to do math. It was just awesome. So anyway, just a great day. And I enjoyed being on the tour with Director Barrar. So it was great having two directors there, I thought, at the middle school, because we each had different questions and things like that. So I want to continue to do more of those. I think, like I said,
We could have maybe
quarterly
quarterly visits. We would love to visit more, not inspect. It's
Right.
just part of the job, you know.
Well, it is partly inspection,
Yeah.
but sure.
It's just that it's our hands on the platter, you know, when the people who vote for us to be in this position of service to the families, we have to be able to present, that assurance that, yes, we are definitely doing everything that we can in service to our families. You know, it's 13 years, 1,000 hours per year. That's a lot of hours of the students, that we service. So definitely a big undertaking. Sorry, never mind. Coming back to the point of tours, we would love to do quarterly tours. I just wanted to add on to our update of the review of the comprehensive sex education curriculum, that all of our curriculum is online on the website. So thank you so much, Dr. Julie, for doing that. Honestly, we didn't even ask it to be online. So just that, prerogative that comes from our own district or staff. We do have a great, district and great staff, commendable staff. And then doing that without even being asked, I think that's just a great show of, again, of the level of service that we give to the families. So if you have any questions, we have a lot of, I didn't know about that tab, so that was really interesting for me to go into the curriculum tab, and then actually all of our curriculum almost is right there on the website. So kudos really to your department for, that's a lot of job to do. So to you and Kelly, I think transparency, that was one of those things when I was on the other side of the table that I really was like, where is that? Because that makes the connection between the district and the parent. So truly from my heart, thank you. And I think from everybody, thank you for doing that.
Yeah, we've got an awesome team with teaching and learning, and Dr. Van Wyk and just all the people that are involved in what we teach our students. So I'm very impressed. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm not gonna share it because it's getting late. But okay. Once the priorities are out, there's 4 of them. It has to do with MSOC, the underfunding of special education again, outdated prototypical model that Ben kind of referred to, and then transportation, which I had an opportunity to go to transportation. Did you go recently too?
I went
last spring.
Did you go, Director Ferber?
I did.
Okay.
I want to get there.
Bus garage? I would go to the bus garage if I were you.
I want to go there.
If you want to talk about a oiled machine, man, Sean's got that thing locked down. Shane Gillis. And, so close. And, his secretary was, who too, Brenda and
Monica.
Monica? Wow. Like, they know where a kid is at any time. And the amount of Brenda had worked 3 different locations in school to get full-time hours, and just, I don't know, Shane has that thing just going, and
It's way more complex than you
like,
think it is.
insane. Like, some kids have up to 14 different routes because they're going at any one month, just different places. That breaks my heart, but it's pretty cool. Anyway, and then Director Verbrugge and myself had a conversation, and I'm not going to go into it, but just kind of what our thoughts are for this upcoming legislative session, and but we'll throw out some information maybe next time.
Yeah. Got some ideas about that.
Okay. That's it, and then we're going to move on.
Sorry, I have some. This was suggested to me by someone who is also present here at this meeting, but is not here right now. But, and this is related to Teacher Hutchins. I'm not sure, I'm just gonna let the idea float and come out, was that she was an integral part, right, of ISEM. I mean, I don't know her personally, but just from the things that I've been hearing, right, it's always that the person lives, whether or not they're here, they live through their actions. That's, that keeps their name alive and their legacy alive. And I don't know whether this has been done before or not, or whether it has been considered. Coming to the point is the ISEM library.
Fisher.
Oh, Fisher.
She
I'm
was a
sorry,
part
not
of
ISEM.
Fisher.
Fisher.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
Yep, sorry.
The Fisher library that we have, and I don't know, like I said, if this has been done or not done before, but is it called Memorial? Like Memorial? Okay, thank you. To name it after teacher Christy Hutchins.
I will,
And
sorry.
if that's something that the board, I mean, I don't know how that works. Like I said, I don't know if this has been floated out there, that idea.
Let me do some, if it's okay, let me do some review and research on that and practices. There are some best practices and some things to be cautious about and things. And let me go back and do that and then maybe provide that information and see if it can be an agenda item in the future. I would think everybody would want to do something. Let's look at what some of the
what's allowed, not allowed,
the pros and cons
yeah.
and things, and then have a discussion about that.
Sure.
And then,
So
they did
it's
start
good.
what's the word, scholarship in her name that you can donate to, and I know that I put some of that information out, and as well as getting a T-shirt, because she would say, "Hello, sweet friend." Yeah, all good stuff.
Yes, it's good.
Okay. Sorry, last one. I know I've talked about this a lot of times, and I think it would be really great to get, in one of our superintendent updates to kind of get where we're at in terms of having that data sheet of like STAR, state assessments, WIDA, right? Putting that multi-learner in there, and to have to correlate all of those different data points that are in different times, and then have those in one place. Just so we know as a district, what our key strategic goals have been, which by the way, that paper has been, when was it last updated? We had a little talk about
The
that.
strategic, it's been updated for this year, but
The strategic plan.
the strategic plan has been reviewed and updated. The last time was 2021.
2021.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I just feel like, because that's one document where we can, when we do the superintendent evaluation, that's one of those things that we hold the superintendent accountable to, right? As far as and ourselves accountable as well too, as far as the district's direction, what have we achieved in terms of those goals? So I feel like, I know the last time we talked about this was at a retreat, and it was only talked, I think, one time. So I don't know if you guys would be interested into looking at that.
Yeah, that was February 3rd of this year, and I think at that time what we had discussed was waiting because we were such a new board at that time.
I think waiting a year or something. So.
Right, and we're coming up on a year here in a month. So, yeah, that's something that I think might be good to look at.
Yeah,
So.
different set of people, right? And then it's not something that we only decide. Obviously, we're going to have, other key personnel from our departments and schools, that we will have input on. So it's going to be a even community, type of thing. I think that's how you described it, right? That document, how that gets updated. I think it would be interesting to kind of, work on it, to have it on that strategic calendar so we can work on it. At some point.
Yes, I think engaging the community on the board's goals and the district goals would be a valuable time spent, and then creating dashboards is what you're kind of talking about, to be able to kind of have markers of those things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, moving on.
Great.
So we're going to go into executive session. Do I have to?
Yep.
About this thing?
No. Okay, there you go.
So the board will now meet in executive session to discuss litigation or potential litigation as allowed by RCW 42, thanks guys, 30-110. The board will be in executive session until
I would go 10:30.
10:30 p.m. The board is not expected to take any action following the executive session.